Thank you. Most of us carry cell phones, and I'm going to ask that they either be silenced or turned off along with any pagers. If you have an appeal to any case, whether it's for or against a decision that this commission makes, there are appeal cards over on the end of the banister there. Please fill them out and turn them into staff. If you want to speak on any case, there's speaker cards over there. Please fill those out and let us know that you want to speak. Each side will be given 10 minutes on each case and a 5-minute time for rebuttal, and we're keeping track of that pretty close. If you want to have a discussion on any case or a decision that's made, please exit the building. Do not go out in the foyer because it still produces a lot of noise in here. Mr. Willie, will you please lead us to an invocation?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day. We ask for your divine guidance as we conduct business for St. Tammany Parish. Forgive us where we fall short of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Mr. Hines, Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recognize we have a new member. I think you might want to introduce him to everyone in the public.
All right, we have a new member. He was appointed during this past month. I don't know exactly when the council met, but I know they met at this last meeting. His name is Pug Lauren, and he's sitting down there next to Ms. Casabon. Pug, I'm going to tell you congratulations. There's other folks that might tell you condolences, but you know, we'll see how this goes. Thank you, and we're glad to have you aboard. All right, approval of the minutes of the July 3rd meeting. Everyone had an opportunity to review. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Motion to approve by Mr. Davis, seconded by Mr. Hines. Please vote. He didn't vote. Motion carries with one abstention. Staff, we have several cases. I understand we need to look at tabling.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Number 2 on the agenda, ZC 1208-065. This is a text change. I don't know if you want to hear this case at the end or if you want to verify if there's some people in the audience who are interested in.
Okay, this is a text changed zoning case 120865. It's an ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, Volume 1 zoning to create a new section 6.08 Regional Business Center overlay to allow for the coordinated design standards and flexible design standards for planned commercial or office developments. Anyone in the office here because of this? Mr. Shane? Okay, commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we move this item to the end of the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews. Who second? Ms. Casabon? Please vote. Motion carries. Staff?
Case number 4 on the agenda, ZC 1208-067, requested to table the case.
Okay. Zoning case 1208-067, A2, Suburban District, proposed is PF1 Public Facility, 6.33 acres. Petitioner is John Sammons, owner St. Tammany Parish Fire District Number 7, John K. Sammons. Parcel located on the west side of Louisiana Highway 41, south of Gus Baldwin Road, being 73469 Highway 49, Pearl River, Ward 6, District 6. Anyone here on that case? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that it be tabled.
We have a motion by Mr. Hines to table. We have a second by Todd. Please vote. Motion carries.
Number 12 on the agenda, ZC 12-08075.
Okay, zoning case 12-08075, existing zoning is NC1, professional office district, proposed zoning I2. Acres is 1.4338, petitioner is Ed McClellan, owner is Anita M. Warner, parcel located on the east side of I-59, south and west of Louisiana 1090, Ward 8, District 9. Do we have anyone here on that case?
I'm not aware that, I don't think that the petitioner or the owner are in the audience. The petitioner requested to table the case because they're trying to see if I-2 is the most appropriate zoning for the area.
Okay, do we have anyone here
I'll
for this
motion,
case? Need a motion?
I'll motion to table.
Motion by Ms. Casabon, seconded by Mr. Hines. Please vote. Any other ones? Motion carries, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Number 20 on the agenda, ZC 12-08083.
Okay, zoning case 12-08083, existing zoning is A3 Suburban District, proposed is MD1 Medical Residential District, 1.2 acres. Petitioner is Arcadia Communities LLC. Owner is Lenny L. Crawford and Jean Crawford Cleveland. Parcel located on the south side of Crawford Road, east of Louisiana 21, south of Louisiana Highway 36, Ward 3, District 2. Is there anyone here on that case?
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Moran is here.
The
We have a
petition,
couple of folks here on that case.
that's the petitioners. They're the petitioners.
Okay. Mr. Morone?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I represent Arcadia Communities. This request was part of our effort to expand the Trace Assisted Living Facility in this area. Members of the commission may remember that I appeared several months ago on an additional piece. We are still working with our architect on this track and on these additional pieces. We would like an additional 30 days in which to do that to make sure that we're able to join this to those parcels and to fit into the addition that we're working on.
Okay. Commissioners?
Motion to table.
Motion by Ms. Casabon, second by Mr. Manella. Please vote. Motion carries. Staff, any others?
Yes, the last case on the agenda, ZC 12-08085.
Zoning case 12-08085, existing zoning's A1 Suburban District, proposed is A1 Suburban District and mobile home, manufactured housing overlay. It's 2 acres. The petitioner is Vera Brown Harvey. The owner is Vera Brown Harvey, Dauphine B. Aguilard, Darnell Brown, Linda Leasy, Barbara Brown, Roy Brown, and Dennis Brown. Parcel located on the east of Highway 450, north of Ed Williams Road, Ward 2, District 3. Is there anyone here on that case?
Mr. Chairman, this case has to be re-advertised. A wrong legal description had been provided to staff, and the petitioners requested to table until the month of October.
This will be a postpone until the month of October.
Motion to table.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
We have a motion by Ms. Casabon to postpone until October, seconded by Mr. Hines.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have we determined whether it's in St. Tammany Parish or Washington Parish?
We did, yes.
Okay.
And now, that's why it has to be re-advertised. The legal description outside the parish had been provided to us, so now they provided the correct legal description so we can proceed with it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone until October. Please vote. Motion carries. We're missing one vote. Who we missing?
Jimmy?
There we got. Motion carries. All right, staff, is there any others? Okay, thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, zoning case 96-11-064, is a major amendment to the planned unit development overlay, 17.47 acres. The petitioner is Aero Engineering and Consulting Incorporated, Darrell Fussell. Owners Money Hill Golf and Country Club, Mimi Goodyear Dossert. Parcels located on the east side of Raccoon Drive and on the north and south and west of Bald Eagle Drive, being lots 379 through 391, Phase 6, Part 3 of Money Hill subdivision, Ward 6, District 6. Staff?
The request consists of an addition of an alley in the rear of lots 379 to 391 of Phase 6 of Money Hill, and staff does not have any objection and would like to recommend approval.
Okay. Anyone here to speak on this case? Commissioners? Oh, look there. All right. Go ahead, state your name, please.
My name is Mimi Goodyear Dossett, and I'm just
Okay.
here to request approval. So.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Ms. Dodgett's requesting approval. Commissioners?
Yes, with the staff approving this, and it makes sense, it's 12 lots that we're dealing with. I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Manella. Please vote. Mr. Matthews? Mr. Matthews?
I did have one question. It wasn't
I'm sorry.
real important, but I just want to verify. The only change you're making is to put this alley in, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I
and-
just wanted to
and
make sure. It
the
seemed a very
homes-
small change,
The
but
homes will have the same setback requirements, the same design restrictions, the same size restrictions. Everything is the same, except they'll have a rear garage and golf cart and parking as opposed to in the front.
okay.
You want to clear and reload it? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the item 2 is going to be heard at the end of the agenda. Item 3 is zoning case 12-08-066. Existing zoning is A3 Suburban District, proposed is HC2 Highway Commercial District, 1.8 acres. The petitioner is Jeff Shane, owner is Henry Austin Moore, parcel located on the west side of US Highway 11, north of Avenue D, Ward 8, District 9. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan calls for residential development in this area. Staff is not completely opposed to commercial zoning in this area, but it abuts Highway 11 and HC2 Highway Commercial zoning on the north side. However, the HC2 Highway Commercial zoning district is too intense for the site, considering that it is directly abutting some existing single-family residences on the south and west sides. A less intense commercial zoning classification may be more appropriate. Staff recommends that the request for HC2 designation be denied.
Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Good evening. My name is Jeff Shane, and I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm here in Covington. I represent United Assets LLC, which is the prospective purchaser of this property owned by Henry Austin Moore. And as the staff report indicates, we come before you this evening asking you to consider a recommendation of rezone from the existing A3 to HC2. I have passed out a drawing to you that depicts the subject property, and if you could take a look at that drawing, I think it'll help us with our discussion. My client currently owns the 3.76 acres, which is handwritten above it Veruso, and below it it's marked HC2, which directly abuts a CLECO right-of-way. That CLECO right-of-way and the property south of that comprises the 1.8 acres which is before you this evening. So my client owns the 3.76 and hopes to acquire the 1.8 acres, and he, of course, wants this property to be contiguous. Staff has acknowledged that commercial zoning should be appropriate for this parcel, but as usually is the case, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and we respect the fact that staff believes that a less than HC2 commercial zoning might be appropriate. I do think that there is a condition, though, that we can bring to your attention this evening that might accomplish our objective and perhaps satisfy staff's concerns and hopefully questions that you might have. And that is that we have entered into an arrangement with CLECO to relocate the right-of-way that you see on this drawing, and it will be relocated along the edge of Avenue D, where it abuts the residential. And in fact, although the drawing is a little crude, you will see that the right-of-way is also going to turn to the north at the intersection of 4th and Avenue D, so that there will be a 25-foot wide CLECO right-of-way there. So from that perspective, it seems to me that there will be some insulation between Avenue D and the track if you agree to rezone it. I would also add that it would be perhaps not impossible, but awkward to develop the tracks, assuming they are united at some point, the 3.76 and the 1.8, if they had two different zones. You can imagine in trying to do a nice commercial development, it would be certainly better from the developer's perspective to have highway commercial zoning. For those of you that don't frequent this area often, I'd like to remind you that this particular section of Highway 11, or actually Highway 1090, as you see on the map, is really pretty well developed. The Waffle House is nearly across the street where the CLECO right-of-way intersects the highway. Just north of this area is a commercial development that includes a large grocery store, and there's certainly other commercial development in the area. So my point is that I think this is, in fact, where the commerce is in this particular area. And again, we believe that the inclusion of this 1.8 acres with the 3.76 is compatible as it relates to the other zoning and land use in the area. And we also think that the relocation of the CLECO right-of-way certainly, again, provides consideration for those that live in the residential area to the south. I might also add that none of the homes on Avenue D front this property. The three, or maybe four, but 3 or 4 homes that are on Avenue D all front either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th Street. That doesn't mean that they don't abut, but I do think it's important for you to know that none of them have front doors or driveways that load into Avenue D. There is one house in Square 24, I believe it's one, and if I'm mistaken, maybe 2, but I think it's only one, as you go around the corner to the back. Again, though, they're going to have the benefit of this CLECO right-of-way as well. And CLECO obviously has agreed to move its lines from the current location to the periphery of the property. We envision that that area will, have some overhead poles, but there'll be no reason for there to be any development in that area. And in all probability, once the commercial property develops, in all likelihood, there will be some landscaping, fencing, things of that nature that would separate the commercial from the CLECO right-of-way. So we ask you to take these things into consideration. Last but not least, I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Cloud and Ms. Johnson, who are here this evening, that live in the area, who have expressed concern about the case and may wish to speak tonight. But in speaking to them and explaining to them what we hope to do, it seemed as though their concerns have been taken care of once they understood that we didn't intend to have direct commercial access off of Avenue D. With that having been said, we would ask you to consider or to recommend HC2 to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Dorothy Cloud, you turn the card in to speak.
We've talked to the petitioner, and we've been informed of this, and that's okay with us. We were just concerned with the traffic. And since people will not be able to leave from that property and access Avenue D because of the right-of-way, we're all right with it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cloud. Commissioners, Mr. Hines?
Yes, sir. I'm very familiar with this property. This is in the area where I live, and this is just about all this property in this area is going to be commercial at some point in time along Highway 1090 and 1090 Highway 11, whatever you want to call it. But I agree with you, I wouldn't want it on Avenue D either, okay? But the way that they presented it, I'd make a motion that it be approved.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr.
Second.
Hines, second by, who second? You got Todd? Okay, Mr. Willie, I believe, you get, no, Matthews, okay. You have your light on, Bill?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Jeff? What type of CLECO facilities are on this right away? Is it a high tension line or is it just a?
No, it's what I'll call a service line.
Typical standard height poles.
Okay.
It's not what I call a transmission line or anything. It's,
If you know what a 34.5 is, that's what it is.
Don't know what a 34.5 is.
It's 34,500 volts.
Okay.
I would tell you, it's a series of poles and lines that are very typical as to what
Or
you see
neighborhoods,
in a
highways,
residential.
okay.
Yes, sir.
What size is this right away? I don't see that on here, but I may be missing.
25 feet wide.
25 feet wide. And will this be some type of no-cut or some type of thing like that?
No, I don't think it would be no cut in that certainly they're going to have to get in to put the poles.
Right, I understand that.
But other than putting the poles in, I suspect it will end up, and if you saw the existing right-of-way, it has underbrush and growth in it around and underneath the poles and lines, so I don't think it would be any different.
Okay.
I think once the poles are relocated, that'll be the end of the story. The other thing, too, is that we understand CLECO feels confident they will be able to service these lines from the street, from Avenue D,
Okay.
so that they should not have a need to have to put, say, a service road or something underneath the lines to get to them.
Okay, and it's 25 feet, you said?
25
Okay.
feet.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, I had a question for staff. Did you realize about this change in the CLECO before you made your recommendations?
If I'm not mistaken, I had a conversation with Mr. Shane. However, we do not base our recommendation on the movement of a CLECO
Okay.
servitude.
Because if we grant this as is without having some sort of stipulation in the district approving this, right? You have to have some sort of documentation to staff saying that CLECO is definitely going to move this. I mean, just you saying that CLECO has agreed doesn't do anything for us.
Sure. It doesn't. I think what we can do is that by the time the ordinance is up for adoption, we'll stipulate now that we'll have the necessary letter, document, servitude, something with CLECO that we can put into the record with the council so that before the property actually gets rezoned, you'll know that the right-of-way is going to be relocated. And in fairness to staff, this matter had not developed to the point that it has now. When we filed the case, we may have discussed it, but I was not as committal as I am this evening. That's something that's only developed in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
But we understand your point, and
Yeah.
we will commit to make sure that that documentation is available at the time of the ordinance adoption.
Yeah, I do like the idea of merging these two properties together on that corner, though. That makes a lot of sense. And, yeah, as long as you can make sure. Now, of course, for some strange reason, if CLECO, if you don't get the right to move back CLECO, of course, it'd go back to the existing zoning it is now.
In the motion.
No,
No?
no.
Well, then how can we guarantee that?
You can't rezone on a condition.
So
Well,
how-
but-
On
then
that.
what we shouldn't,
Mr. Davis?
Yeah.
yeah.
It does.
Are you,
Yeah, it should.
you finished, or,
Well, I'm finished. I'm just a little confused on how we can,
Maybe I have an idea.
okay?
I recognize it's to some extent a chicken and the egg, because you're only a body that recommends, and you're not going to be the body the night it's ordained, if it, in fact, that's adopted, let us say. The ordinance is adopted, not ordained. But not only will I make a commitment that happen, if it doesn't happen, what we'll agree to do is not rezone that 25-foot strip and leave it A3. It would seem to me that would in much the same way
that's the
accomplish
same
what we
difference.
want
That's good.
of telling you that there's not going to be that there. So we would amend the ordinance. I think Mr. Han agrees we could take that strip out if we had to, and we'll make sure that there is no HC2 touching Avenue D or the rear street.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Casbon?
Yeah, it was just, I was going to say that it would satisfy staff's concerns about the size of the lot by combining the two together. And I had the question on the, it would be a no-cut, and that would leave more privacy for the D, so I concurred with the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hines, and I believe we need a little bit of an amendment on it, in that the area abutting Avenue D will remain A3, and we're recommending that the balance of that go to A2.
Wait, no,
That's what I said. isn't it?
no, I don't, that's not,
Help me out.
no.
If I misspoke, let me try to be clear again. We would ask that you recommend that all of the property be rezoned HC2, and that at the time the ordinance is ready for adoption, we will have the CLECO documentation relocating the right-of-way. But if we do not, we agree to amend and restrict the rezone at that time to exclude the 25-foot strip along Avenue D and 4th Street.
Okay. Everything all right with that, Mr. Hines? Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the item 4 was tabled. Item 5, zoning case 12-08-068. Existing zoning's A1 Suburban District, proposed as A1A Suburban District. It's 12.8 acres. Petitioner is Bridget Mizell. Owner is Emil P. Davies. Parcel located on the east side of Booth Road, north of Joyner Road, Ward 2, District 3. Staff?
The future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with agricultural and residential uses. There's an existing house on the property. The site is surrounded by large parcels of land with single-family residences. Staff sees no compelling reason to increase the density in the area and recommends denial.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Bridget Mizell with Smith & Core Real Estate. I represent Mr. Emil Davies. This was inherited property by Mr. Davies. He would like to have it zoned A1A, with the smallest parcel being 3 acres, a 4.8 acre tract, and a 5 acre tract. It's not only surrounded by large parcels on the south side of this property. There's at least 2 acre parcels with single-family residents, 2 1 acre parcels. There's a 3 acre parcel catty corner across the street. He would like to, he has 3 daughters, and his intentions is to donate each parcel, 1 parcel to each of his daughters. One daughter is currently residing in the house, which is in the middle. Do y'all have a copy of our proposed, the 3 parcels? And the smallest parcel being a 3 acre, and we would have liked them to be even, but just with the frontage of the property and how it was laid out to keep the minimum 150 feet, that's how we had to survey them. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here opposed? Would you like to speak?
I have a question.
Please come up to the mic. State your name.
My name is Marcus Buring. I'm the real estate agent who has the property adjacent listed, which is a 9 acre parcel. Is there any guarantee that the adjacent parcel that's being subdivided is going to be sold off or donated to the family members? There's no guarantee of that whatsoever.
No, once it is rezoned and the title goes to the daughters, then they can do what they wish to.
Don't the surrounding property owners get notices in the mail that adjacent parcels are being subdivided or re-subdivided?
There was a notice posted on the property, big yellow sign with the case number and everything on it.
So the only indication would have been that poster board?
No, it's advertised in the Farmer. So it's advertised, plus it's the property itself is posted.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, The only other solution would be to move to hear this at another time or approve it tonight, correct?
For what,
Yes,
for what purpose?
it could be postponed to.
Just to see what effect there would be on my client's adjacent parcel. We wouldn't obviously want the property the adjacent property to be re-subdivided and cause
I believe
the
that-
adjacent parcel to have
I believe the
decreased.
property, the signs are posted 30 days prior to the hearing, is that,
It's been there for,
pardon? 10 days,
Minimum.
Minimum of 10 days before.
okay, all right.
but it's been there a little
But
while.
the advertising is,
It's 3 times in the newspaper for a period of 6 weeks before the meeting.
okay. So there should have been adequate time for everyone to know that this was going to be coming up before us.
Understand. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Turn it over to the commissioners. Ms. Casabon?
Yes, this parcel is about, not even a quarter of a mile from my house, and this is old dairy property. At one point, my husband's family owned all of that, and it has been sold, but this is, and I do know this family, and he does have 3 daughters, and there is a house on it, and that we have had to divide these up, even if if the family members, it's still, we're looking at zoning, that we're keeping this within what is the norm of 3 acres or larger in that area, which it comes out to be. And this does fit that particular area. There's very little farming, going on, and what land is left there, it is family owned, and now the families are, beginning to divide up for their children. So I asked Mr. Thompson about it and talked to him, and because it is family, it's being divided up for family. And our concern was that we wanted to keep it 3 acres or larger, and 2 of these are larger. It's just that house, as she says, being able to divide that it does fit the area. The parcel, I think, that he's talking about on his clients has been some land that people have bought, and now they have it for sale. But all on that side of the road is not family property. It's people that have come and bought it, but, it's still large pieces and stuff. So I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Mr. Willie?
I was going to say that it's going to be compatible to that area.
Okay, Mr. Matthews?
I have just a couple of concerns that this property was fairly recently re-subdivided in 2007. Now they're re-subdividing again, and they want A1A, which would allow 4 parcels on this piece of property if they so decide to do that. And if we just give this an A1A designation, there's no guarantee that they won't at some future time decide to cut this into 4 parcels rather than the 3. And I think that's really just getting a little too dense for this area, and I'm concerned about that.
Let me explain what happened next door before we started with our new comprehensive thing. There was a parcel, again, that my husband's family owned and had sold and whatever. Right before we had you had to have the 100-foot right-of-way. They sold this, and they made it because it was on 2 parish roads, one small parish road, but 2 parish roads. They got 5 parcels out of this piece. There is 5 houses right next door to this piece, and they're beautiful. They're precious little houses and stuff, and they sold right away because that was the need of the people at that time. Sometimes we're looking at larger pieces, but people can't afford those larger pieces and stuff. And even if they did take, but they've got their plaque and they've said what they're going to do with it, I would not be concerned if they did take and make one more parcel out of it, because it still fits in that area. It's right next door, same piece of property next door. In fact, the man owned it at one time, and they have.
He's currently deceased.
Yes,
It was
he's currently
Mr.
deceased,
Davies'
but-
father who sold it.
Right, but all of that land was, and I'm just saying that piece, he had sold to someone else.
Correct,
And
correct.
that other person has put 5 houses, because at that time, it's 2 parish roads. So he has 2 on this road, and there's 3 facing this road on an acre or less. So I'm
Martha-
not concerned with another, if they did put another house there. It's
Martha,
compatible.
is the information or the staff report wrong that everything around there is A1?
It could be, but that's what we did when we rezoned, because we felt that that was the safest way to, we would rather come back like this to really look at each parcel instead of designating, oh, we'll do that one, smaller lots and stuff. So when Mr. Thompson looked at the area, we made most of that area A1. And so he could go back, and that's what's his statement. He said he felt like he could look at it individually and decide. But as far as being compatible, it is compatible to this area.
Well, but everything around it is A1, and there's some non-conforming properties possibly.
Right across the street was, I call it a compound. It's a big, beautiful house. They had golf course and stuff. But that, I think, is up for sale now.
It just recently sold.
It just recently sold. Then you have 2 other parcels that I think people, I don't think, they don't live there. What they've done is, I think it's summer, there's not anyone there during the day. They're parcels that people come out, I think, from the city and stuff.
Across the road, yes.
Across the road.
Along this side of Booth Road, there's 5 residents to the south, which was originally an 8-acre piece. When Mr. Davies' father sold it, then whoever bought that came before and re-subdivided it and put 5 houses there.
That's
All up
adjacent.
and down Booth Road, it goes anywhere from 1 acre to 60 acres. It's just a rural area that, like I said, it's very common size for the area.
I got a motion to approve. So.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah, Ms. Mizell, I mean, I think to be able to satisfy everybody here, and the gentleman that came up and talked about the surrounding zonage, why don't we just go ahead and, since you're splitting these up in 3 properties, leave 1A as A1, and then name the other 2 lots A1A, and that would take
We
care
would
of-
have no problem with that as long as we get our 3 parcels
Well, there
where,
you go. That way they cannot use it as 4 different parcels. So, and it'll put everything in compliance.
well, if you're concerned, is it the 5-acre piece you were concerned about
I'm not
splitting?
concerned about it. I'm just saying the 5A doesn't need to be changed. Leave it as A1. It's 5 acres.
Right, it doesn't satisfy the, to split that, it wouldn't satisfy the road frontage to be split into another parcel. It's deep, it goes about 650 feet deep, it has 159 feet of frontage,
Right?
and,
That's the only reason you're really trying to get this whole thing all A1A instead of,
well, we're just trying to get it in 3 parcels where he can donate it to his daughters.
well, what I'm saying is, can we leave it,
It's 6.
but we can just, can't we just grant that and just?
They would want to keep that 8 or the 5 acre, that's fine.
Because it's not going to be split up anymore.
But this,
Mr. Davies has no objection to keeping the 5-acre A1 because he has no plan on splitting it any further. He just wanted the 3 parcels to, for his daughter's inheritance.
I don't have a problem with it.
You couldn't legally split that anyway.
Mr. Chairman, we're having a brief discussion as to whether
I noticed
parcel A1 can in fact actually fit under the A1 zoning. The staff's concern is that there is a minimum area regulation, and it says minimum lot width. The width of each zoning lot shall not be less than 300 feet. There is no minimum lot width in the A1 district if the standards of the planning, development overlay are met. But it says shall not be less than 300 feet. Helen reads that as having to be 300 feet on the street. I don't see those words in here. Mr. Han, can you tell us whether the minimum width of 300 feet has to be 300 feet on the street?
That's my interpretation. It has to be 300 feet on the street.
Okay, if you, do you have the plat handy you can look at?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you see how they got a little notch out of it?
Right.
That doesn't count.
No, because it says not a part.
Okay, but,
So it's only 159.62 on the street.
okay. Can you tell me where in the ordinance it says it is required to be 300 feet on the street?
I don't know. I don't have the ordinance in front of me. Helen will bring it down to me.
Okay. Because I think what Jimmy is trying to do, I think is and I hate to say a stroke of genius, but I think it's smart.
What Helen just said is that it's part of the subdivision regulations. That when you subdivide, that you have to have 300 feet on the street. And she doesn't have the subdivision regulation with her. But based upon what she's saying is that in our subdivision regulations, when you go to subdivide, it shall be 300 feet on the street.
Is that for A1 zoning, not A1A, correct?
I believe that's A1.
I thought that it was supposed, anytime when you talk about A1 zoning, if it's 3 acres or more, is that correct for A1?
A1A.
5 acres, or whatever it is. You're talking about acres, you're not talking about frontage.
Well,
I mean,
You-
after
you
all,
are-
it could be 200 feet wide and 900 feet deep and still got 5 acres, okay, or whatever.
Well,
So,
there is a subpart to that.
But if you leave that top part out, you won't have to worry about that 159 feet. You just, and that can stay 159 feet. It's compliance.
It was our understanding the A1A zoning for the 3 acres required a minimum of 150 feet on the A1A, not the A1.
I'm not sure about that. But like I say, if you take out that 5 acres as part of the request for zoning change and just rezone the rest of the property, then you'd be able to do what you want to do, I believe.
Ms. Cosbon, your motion was A1A on all of it. Would you accept in your motion to leave the 5-acre parcel as A1 and the rest of it to A1A?
That's fine as long as when we,
Okay, Mr. Hines, you seconded?
I think technically you'd still be creating a lot that does not meet the ordinance by that. You're creating a non-conforming lot by doing that.
Well, actually, we're not doing anything with that piece of property.
would that affect us?
We're just removing that piece of property from the request, so it would stay what it is. So we're not creating a lot.
But then they'll have to subdivide, which will create that lot.
Right.
Well, they have 7.8 acres to create 2 lots. That all fall in A1A.
Yes.
When we go to re-subdivide it, I think that will come up that, we don't have the frontage if it's kept as A1.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Hand
Well,
in just a moment.
I think that Mr. Matthews is correct. If you're going to in effect create a lot that has insufficient frontage by doing the other 2 as A1A.
As a point of clarification, currently, it's 12.8 acres, correct?
That's correct.
And we are going to subdivide it into 3 lots.
That's correct.
Each of the 3 lots must satisfy whatever the zoning that we grant it.
That is
So
correct.
therefore, Lot 1A, if it doesn't have 300 feet frontage when we subdivide it, wouldn't qualify.
That is correct.
So you're correct. All 3 lots have to. Currently, it's 1 lot of 12.8 acres.
Correct.
Even though it's 5 acres, according to what we believe the ordinance stipulates, it has to have 300-foot frontage. If we subdivide it, it will no longer qualify.
Under the A1, but under the A1A it
Correct.
would?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct.
Okay, Mr. Willie?
Mm,
Okay, so we're back more or less to Martha's original motion.
Yes.
call for question.
Yeah, A1A. Mr. Hines has called the question. Please vote.
We're voting on the A1A.
That's correct. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 6, zoning case 12-08-069. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed is NC2 Indoor Retail and Service District. It's .907 acres. Clara Pizzuto is a petitioner. Owner is Clara Pizzuto, Frank Francois Jr., Francis Wagasback, Claire R. Valentino, Iris Ricka Harris, Nicole Ricka Randall, Joseph Ricka. Parcel located on the south side of Louisiana 1088, east of Forest Brook, Ward 4, District 7. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses. The site is partially zoned NC4 and directly abutting a parcel zoned NC4. Staff does not have objections to the request and recommends approval.
Thank you.
My name is Patricia Peterson. I am the daughter of Claire Pizzuto, one of the owners, and we are requesting approval for rezoning. As mentioned, a portion of this property has already been rezoned by the parish, so we'd like to have the whole piece of property to be whole, to be zoned commercial, and also neighboring property to the east and to the west of this portion of land is also zoned at least NC4 or maybe NC3, just, various. And then also, according to the 2025 plan, this is part of it to be zoned commercial. This is what the intentions of the parish would be, and so that's what we are requesting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pizzuto.
Okay.
Is there any opposition to this? Please fill out a card, a speaker card, Ms. Pizzuto.
Oh, okay.
Please fill out a speaker card for us. And your name?
Carlo Hernandez. I filled out a speaker card.
Thank you.
And turned it in. I live in the Forest Brook subdivision, which is behind this property. Forest Brook has 433 home sites. Forest Brook has one entrance and one exit. It is on Highway 1088, a very short distance from this property here. It has no turning lanes. One lane in each direction, Highway 1088. Approximately, the board of directors of Forest Brook, I sit on the board of directors of the Homeowners Association, and we are opposed to this zoning change request. Approximately 2 years ago, for those members who are been on the commission for 2 years, you can recall that there was a request, very similar request, for the property right across the street from this property. It was for 1.6 acres. It was September of 2010. At the time, the staff recommended denial of this zoning request. It was from A2 to NC1, and the staff recommended denial. And it's stated then, as it is now, it is not in conformance with the long-range plan. The long-range plan calls for this area to be residential. The staff's recommendation was approved by the zoning commission. That appeal was made to the parish council, and the parish council upheld the denial. And that was in 2011. It rolled over because of tabling. I guess one of my concerns is that, and I would like to ask the petitioner, do they also own additional property in this immediate area? And is this the first request for a changing in the zoning? The property, it's interesting, Forest Brook has, its right-of-way ends right along this drainage canal that forms right along one side of it. And that's where this proposed roadway between 1088 and Highway US 190 through Pelican Park was supposed to go. So this right-of-way was supposed to be right in this immediate area, right here. So I guess one of my questions is, are they familiar with that? And, you know, is this property, in fact, part of this proposed right-of-way that's for this proposed highway, which at presently has no funding, but I believe they've identified the needed right-of-way, which is very large, I think in the order of 250 feet, which goes from 1088 to Pelican Park and then through to 190. So it's right in this immediate area. And the best part is that it's surrounded by A2 property. I mean, the A2 property is all around this particular property. So I'm curious as to why 2 years ago the staff recommended denial for a very similar nature. They're bumping it up from NC1 as proposed 2 years ago to NC2, and now the staff has no objection to this, which I find very curious because it's not consistent with the long-range plan, which calls for residential. And I would hope that the zoning commission will agree that to maintain it in its presently A2 residential designation. Thank you.
Sorry, any other opposition or? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I spoke to planning, and it was to my understanding that it is part of the 2025 plan. As far as the proposed highway, our request really doesn't have anything to do with the proposed highway. The request is that we have a piece of property that is zoned, that the parish has zoned a part of it commercial, and then the rest of it is residential. We had nothing to do with it being rezoned commercial, and so we would like the whole piece to be rezoned because of the fact that the piece that they did rezone as commercial, now you have to put a buffer zone around it, and it really is worth nothing with putting a buffer zone around it and that piece being zoned commercial, because in the middle of it is driven a ditch. And with that whole piece now is just, has defaced the value of this property. And so I don't really feel as though it's unreasonable to ask for it, because the adjacent property, if you look on the map that St. Tammany has on the internet, the adjacent properties are rezoned, and the adjacent properties to ours. And I think the gentleman's name is Bruce Cox, and I think the problem is that the people had with the rezoning in that area is because of the fact that they took down so many of the trees and they defaced the appearance of it, and we do not have any intentions to do anything like that. We just would like the entire piece of property to be zoned one piece and be whole. Okay.
Anyone else? Is that opposition? No, you're speaking for,
Yes,
okay.
I'm also speaking for, when the gentleman mentioned that they are thinking about a road coming through, I can't recall what highway it was from, but we had spoke to, from Highway 190, we had spoke to Councilman Groby, and he had said that our property ends well before Lenny Lane, which is a little dead-end street, and Councilman Groby had said that the proposed plan for the highway is on the other side of Lenny Lane. So our piece of property really has nothing to do with the highway. They have no intention of coming through our piece of property with the highway.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'll turn it over to the commission. Mr. Lauren?
I've heard two different things. I've heard the petitioner say that their adjacent property is zoned commercial.
Yes.
Where, I'm looking at the map, the exhibit map. Which part is zoned commercial?
If you look at the triangular piece of property, the little piece, the little part that is of the triangle is already zoned commercial.
That's commercial.
Yes.
And then the property next to us going towards Forest Brook
So
is
this-
also
is this
zoned
residential?
commercial.
And
It's
this is
really, it looks
residential.
like it's surrounded by NC.
It
This
is.
is residential, and what is this over here? Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, couple of things. I live on 1088, and I will grant Carlo's position is he doesn't want any commercial on 1088. And basically, that's kind of my position too. We've got plenty of commercial on 1088. However, everything north of the Forest Brook Boulevard on 1088 is very close to the interchange between I-12 and 1088. And I think for anybody to consider that a major interstate intersection like that would remain residential is probably just wrong. And if you look at the map, you'll see Lenny Lane, and across from it is NC4. If you look at Forest Brook Boulevard, everything adjacent to Forest Brook Boulevard is NC4 already. While additional commercialization of 1088 on the southern part is, I think, a bad idea because of the traffic and everything else that's going on south of this. North of Forest Brook, I think, will become commercial, and all of what you see, or much of what you see as A2 on either side of this particular piece, at least fronting on 1088, will probably eventually also be commercial. The road that Carlo talked about that will go to Pelican Park, I think Mr. Gorby may be mistaken. I think it will run right adjacent to Forest Brook. I'm on the board of Pelican Park also. And I also think that that road is nowhere on the current horizon. The acquisition of the right-of-ways for that road may make your piece of property a little more valuable in the future. The one concern I do have is that this piece of property zoned NC2 will be very difficult to put a building on. You probably can't put a building any larger than 3,000 square feet. I hope you all understand that because of the setbacks that are required. But that being said, that's not our problem. That's not for us to consider. I would move to approve the NC2. That's my motion.
I have a motion, and Mr. Davis seconded. Any other questions? All right, let's vote on that motion to approve. Oh, I just did Darty, sorry. You got me. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
No, the motion carries.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, my vote's in the wrong spot. All right, that brings us to number 7. Okay, it's zoning case ZC 12-08070. It's an A1, the existing is an A1 suburban district. The proposed zoning is an A4A, single-family residential with a mobile home overlay. It is 0.47 acres. The petitioner is Elmer King, and the owner is Anne Marie Baker. The parcel is on the east side of South Fitzmaurice Road and South Mayhaw Road, being 76108 South Fitzmaurice, Covington, Louisiana. It's in Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
There's an existing mobile home on the site. Staff has no objection to the request for a manufactured housing overlay. However, there's no compelling reason to support the increase in density from A1 to A4A. So the staff recommends denial for the A4A and recommends approval for the manufactured housing overlay.
Okay, is the petitioner present? Could you come up? Could you state your name, please?
Elmira King.
Okay, do you understand what they're saying? That the existing, that it would grant, you have an existing trailer on there, and you're requesting another one, and the width and the length of the property would not support another trailer.
Okay.
So the zoning that if we approve this zoning, it would make you in compliance for the existing trailer. Is that correct, staff? Am I wording this correctly? It would make her in compliance for the.
With the mobile home overlay, yes.
For the mobile home overlay, but it is, they're denying or their recommendation is to deny the additional trailer because of the length and the width. I went out today, and there wouldn't be not necessarily the setback, but even from the road, because the piece is so narrow.
Okay.
And so that's what the staff is recommending. Is there anyone here in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, I have it's not a petition, but it's an email that I received.
Okay, a list, okay. Anyone else here in opposition? So we do have some petitions sent in.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, something I'm
Sure.
not understanding. Is staff saying that this lot, because of the size of this lot, it could not be rezoned A4A?
No, what we're saying is that we don't have any objection to the manufactured housing overlay, but we're not in favor of the rezoning to A4A.
But it could be rezoned, technically, the size of the lot, shape of the lot, everything. If we so desire, we could rezone it A4A.
If it's the wish of the zoning commission,
Okay,
yes.
so it's not that we can't rezone it. The staff says they're not in favor. Quite frankly, I'm not either. But the staff.
That's what I said, yes.
Okay, I just want to make
That's
sure
what
we
I
won't.
said, yes, that the staff is recommending that they don't have a problem with the zoning. It is the overlay that, or no, you want the overlay. The other way around, that they have, yeah.
Well, everything in the area is pretty much A1, minimum 5
Right.
acres, and
Right.
this half-acre parcel, and trying to divide that is just not compatible to the area, and the area wants to remain pretty much, in rural in nature.
Is there some reason you feel that you need A4A?
I don't understand any of that. I just needed a trailer for me and my kids to have a place of our own.
Okay, there's an existing trailer on it. Okay, you want an additional trailer?
Yes, sir.
You want a
We
second
had
trailer?
2 trailers there before.
Okay, can they have 2 trailers on it if we give them the mobile home overlay?
No, sir.
Okay?
Okay,
What-
you
what-
said
what is
that they
required?
did have, though, at one time, there was 2 trailers
Yes,
on it?
sir.
Why were they forced to take the one trailer off? or
No,
what?
sir. One of them, they had to move because the people beside us bought the other property, and the trailer had set so many feet on their property, and it had to be pulled a little bit, and the trailer was old, and when they pulled it, it fell apart.
So you just wanting to replace that trailer, is
Yes,
what
sir.
you're trying to do?
Well, staff, what can we do other than A4A to allow a second trailer to be put on that property, if that's what we desire to do?
Mr. Matthews, it won't fit. It's so narrow. You have one trailer this way. There's no way to put it this way, facing the road, and it's too small. There's not enough frontage to put it even side by side, lengthwise, side by side. That's,
So what you're saying is,
won't fit.
even if we granted A4A, the lot is incapable of having a second trailer. Staff,
Yes.
is that the case?
yes. The reason why the second trailer, if I'm understanding right, is because they owned more property, and that was on,
It was the same piece of property.
it was on the same piece?
Yes, ma'am. And we measured it out and staked it, and it's still room with the other trailer on
And what
it.
happened to this trailer? The second
It had
trailer?
to be pulled, and when it was pulled, it was really old, and it fell apart. I mean, we had to get a dozer and trailers and have it removed. It fell apart.
Well,
But I can't.
wouldn't the ability to put another trailer on there depend entirely on the size of the trailer?
The property is almost half an acre.
Okay?
So if you rezone to A4A, you're allowed to have 6 residents per acre. So if you rezone to A4A, she will be able to place a second residence on the property. She will never be able to subdivide the property, but she will be able to place a second residence on the property. Now, if she cannot meet the setback, then she will have to go to the Board of Adjustments and request variance for
Is
setback.
there anything other than A4A that would allow her to put 2 trailers on that property?
No, sir, because of the size of that property.
And that's the problem,
It's-
you know,
it's-
that I have is A4A is just not compatible to that area when everything else is A1.
The existing trailer that I saw today is maybe, I don't think it's 5 feet behind, you know, and then there's a driveway, and then the neighbors have like an 8-foot fence. And, you know, I sat and just looked at it, and no matter the length of the trailer, it's still not going to meet our setbacks.
Okay.
You know,
That-
and
that-
stuff.
That's really kind
Yeah, it's
of their
not, but it's-
problem.
well,
You know,
it's-
you know,
Whose problem?
theirs. If we rezone it A4A and it doesn't fit, that's their problem.
I'm going to move for denial.
Motion by Mr. Willie, seconded by Mr. Davis to deny. Ms. Casbon, you still have a
No.
comment? Mr. Matthews? Okay. Please vote. Right. Motion carries. Motion is carried to deny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. So, okay, item 8, zoning case 12-08-071, existing zonings A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning HC2 Highway Commercial District, 2.027 acres. Petitioners Marcus Buring, Bayou Liberty Property LLC is the owner. Parcel located on the south side of US 190 east of Neslo Road, Ward 9, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the site to be developed with commercial uses. The site is surrounded by commercial uses on the north and east sides, and staff does not have any objection and would like to recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, please state your name.
Marcus Buring?
Okay, you filled out a speaker card.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I am here representing Bayou Liberty Property LLC. We are for the development, of course.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
The surrounding property was purchased as one lot of record many years ago, and we're surrounded by commercial, I believe HC2. So we're just, this piece of property was rezoned during the comprehensive rezone. We didn't know about it, and we're just, you know, putting the property back to highway commercial district use, and you know, we'll put it into commerce you know, in the future.
Okay, thank you. Is there any opposition? Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Davis to approve, second by Mr. Manila. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zoning case 12-08-072, existing zonings HC3 Highway Commercial District and A3 Suburban District, proposed zoning NC2 Indoor Retail and Service District. It's 28,800 square feet. Petitioner is Alan Joan DeCourt. Owner is Joyce D. Sagredo, Lois M. DeCourt, Deborah Griffin, Alan J. DeCourt. Parcel located at the southwest corner of Bravo Street and 4th Street, being lots 1 and 2, square 37, Alexisville, Ward 3, District 5. Staff?
If you look at the zoning map, you can see that the front of this parcel of property is zone HC3. And here what the petitioner and owners are requesting is to have the entire parcel rezoned to NC2. So basically to downzone the front of the property to NC2 and make it, you know, a uniform zoning. There's an existing house on the property, which, you know, potentially could be developed as a commercial piece of property. And staff does not have any objection and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak for this? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Alan DeCourty. I'm the petitioner and also one of the co-owners with my family.
Okay. Any comments?
Just request your approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone opposed to this? Commissioners? Mrs. Casabon?
Yes, I concur with the staff. Anytime we can get a downzoning and then it's all compatible, uniform, that one piece and stuff, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Casabon, second by Mr. Hines. Mr. Matthews?
I just want to confirm, we are going to rezone the east portion of this, that is HC3 to NC2. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's unusual. That's why I just wanted to make absolutely clear we had it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have a motion and a second? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Hand has asked me to, and asked the commission to go back and reconsider the item 2 that we moved to the agenda, but I need a motion and a second and a positive vote to do that.
I don't really want to, but I'll make a motion to move it.
Motion by Ms. Casabon, second by Mr. Hines to
People
move
have to go.
zoning
You gotta
case
go.
12-08-065. It's a text change. Ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, Volume 1, zoning to create new section 6.08 Regional Business Center overlay to allow for coordinated design standards and flexible design standards for planned commercial and office developments. We have a motion and a second. Please vote to move this up to be heard now. Motion carries. Thank you. Staff?
As previously stated, the purpose of this overlay is to provide for coordinated design standards and flexible design standards for planned commercial office development. And certain standards and criteria will be applicable. It would have to be located at least 1,250 feet of frontage on interstate. Would have to be zone HC3, PBC1, or PBC2, and at least 100 acres inside. And the approval of the overlay would not change the underlying zoning. It would have to go through a public hearing and approved by the zoning commission. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Okay. Commissioners for staff? Anyone to appear for this? Against, Mr. Shane?
I don't hear a comment unless there's other comment here.
Okay.
My client and I are certainly in favor of the legislation.
All right, thank you. Ms. Casabon?
I was just looking to see if Miss Sandra had anything to say. She looks like she wants to say something.
Mr. Matthews?
Helen, I have a question, and maybe I've just missed it. Number 2 is to change HC2A?
It appears that the wrong, I distributed a copy this evening. If I'm not mistaken, there might have been a portion missing in your packet.
Okay, because
That's
I
what
haven't
you
even had a
missed.
chance to look at this. I don't know whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I make a motion to table, because we just got this tonight and have not been able to even look at it. I'm concerned with that.
All right, Mr. Matthews has a motion to table, second, but I believe that's going to be a motion to postpone, I believe is the correct terminology. Is that correct?
I stand corrected, whatever the correct terminology is.
Okay, we have a
Motion to
motion
postpone.
and a second to postpone, which will be heard at the next meeting. Please vote. Motion to postpone is not subject to discussion. Motion carries to postpone. Mr. Shane?
Well, thank you for moving it up. I had a client with me who I promised the case would be heard second this evening, and obviously it got moved to 22nd. Do I understand that none of you got the legislation?
No.
No.
Okay. I don't blame you for wanting to see it now.
Okay. All right, so that's been postponed then. All right, let's see where we are here. I believe we're on item 9, zoning case 12-08-072. Existing zoning is HC3 Highway Commercial District and A3 Suburban District. No, we just did that one. Okay. All right, item 10, zoning case 12-08-073. Existing zoning is NC4. Proposed is HC1 Highway Commercial. It's 1.966 acres. Petitioner is Nathan J. Junius. Owner's Fire District Number 1, Larry Hess. Location is parcels located on the northeast corner of Robert Road and Brown Switch Road, Ward 8, District 8. Staff?
Staff feels that the HC1 Highway Commercial zoning is appropriate for the site, considering that the intersection of Brown Switch and Robert Road is currently developed with intensive commercial use, and staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for this?
My name is Mark Anino. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Nathan Junius. He's a colleague in my office, Linfield, Hunter, and Junius, and we're just going to ask the commission for approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there any opposition to this? Okay. We'll turn it over to the commission. I happen to be familiar with this and even talked to Commissioner Hess on this. Basically, what's going on here, there's a fire station on Brown Switch Road just east of this particular location. And with the traffic today on Brown Switch Road, it makes it very, very difficult to get in and out for the fire vehicles. And they have negotiated with, I believe it's CVS Pharmacy, to purchase this, and then CVS is going to buy another piece of property off Browns Village Road for them to locate a new fire station, which will be a win-win for everybody in that area. The fire vehicles can get out and get to the emergencies much quicker and easier than they can from their present location. Commissioners, I'll turn it over to you. Ms. Casabon?
I agree. I've been caught up when they got a call, and now they've put a circle that you know, and people halfway don't know whether they're supposed to go or not. I was questioning that. This is a great move, and I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Seconded by Mr. Manella. Mr. Matthews, you have a comment?
Just going from NC4 to HC1 in this area seems like quite a jump. It just seems like, but I guess if we're going to put a large drugstore there, that's nothing else will fit.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11, zoning case 12-08-074. Existing zoning is A4A single-family residential. Proposed is A4A single-family residential and mobile home manufactured housing overlay. It's 0.29 acres. Petitioner is Gwen Schmidt. Owner is Darrell and Gwen Schmidt. Parcel located on the west side of Cass Avenue, north of Coast Boulevard, being lots 42A and 43A, Square 6, Central Park, Ward 8, District 12. Staff?
Staff does not have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Gwen Schmidt, and I was just here to request approval for the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here opposed? Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Matthews to approve, seconded by Mr. Davis. Any discussion? Please vote. Thank you. Motion carries. Let's see, item 12 was tabled. Item 13 is zoning case 12-08-076. Proposed zoning is planned unit development overlay. Acres is 14.6. Petitioners Ryan Ritchie, owner of Covington Medical Properties LLC. Parcel located on the north side of Emerald Forest Boulevard, east of Falconer Drive, Ward 3, District 5. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest to hear this case with ZC 1208-077. They are the two same parcels of property. One is a request to rezone to A4A, and this is the PUD overlay as 076.
Okay,
I'll make a
commissioners,
motion to hear
need a
together.
motion and a second to do that. Motion by Ms. Casabon, seconded by Mr. Hines to hear zoning case 12-08076 and zoning case 12-08077 together, but they will be voted separately. Let me read 077. Existing zoning's NC4, Neighborhood and Institutional District, and NC1, Professional Office District. Proposed is A4A, Single Family Residential, 14.6 acres. Petitioner is Ryan Ritchie. Owner is Covington Medical Properties LLC. Parcel located on the north side of Emerald Forest Boulevard, east of Falconer Drive, Ward 3, District 5. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. We've got a vote to hear together. Everyone voted? We had a motion and a second. Motion carries. Thank you. Staff, do you have any other comments?
The 2025 future land use plan designates the area to be developed with residential uses. Considering that the surrounding uses consist of a mix of undeveloped land, medical, and residential uses, the A4A would be appropriate for the area, and staff would like to recommend approval. The petitioner is also requesting to rezone the property to plan unit development overlay. The site is proposed to be developed with 0 lot line, 64-unit single-family residential subdivision. Each unit will be a minimum of 1,200 square feet to a maximum of 3,100 square feet. Additional parking spaces are proposed to be provided for the guest and the visitor. Also, as shown on the revised plan, the number of driveway has been reduced to a maximum of 2, as previously requested. At this time, staff would like to recommend denial. Staff feels that the proposal is very similar to a typical A4A development. It does not meet the purpose of the plan unit development, which is to encourage flexibility and creativity design.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Morone on behalf of the petitioner. The property before you, as staff noted, is just over 14 acres. To orient you, it is located at the end of Emerald Forest Boulevard Extension. In fact, in order to construct the development, we'll have to extend that extension a bit further to make it to our driveways. We have about 1,000 feet of frontage on the right-of-way. It's just that right-of-way has not been improved all the way to the end or the eastern end of our property. The parcel's somewhat uniquely situated in that we are between the back of a hospital and the front of an apartment complex. The hospital is on our north boundary. The apartment complex is across Emerald Forest to our south. We have single family to the east, and we have NC4 undeveloped to the west. I've worked on this parcel, for many years in an effort to try to determine how it can be brought into commerce. We were advised very early on from the councilman in the area that he was not going to be in favor of the proliferation of additional multifamily. Initially, we felt like abutting the hospital with multifamily next door, that perhaps this would be suited for multifamily. And we had some opportunities for multifamily, but that really was never something that we could get comfortable with the councilman. So in the comprehensive rezoning, it was originally zoned C2. It was downzoned to the NC4 and the NC1 that we have today. We believe that what we're proposing today, given those circumstances, given what's around us, given what its present zoning is an excellent transition. It keeps single family in the area without bringing additional multifamily or additional retail or some other type of commercial or medical use. The A4A, as staff noted, we believe is consistent with the comprehensive plan and also compatible with what's around it, and we believe that the PUD overlay is appropriate as well. The 64 lots are 0 lot line. We will be catering to empty nesters and those wanting to downsize. In doing so, we have just over 25% green space. The homes will vary from 1,200 square feet to 3,200 square feet, but each home will back up to the garden walks. And as you will notice, there are 4 garden walks that amount to our green space areas. The two in the center are about 80 feet wide. The ones on the edges, the east and west side, are about 65 feet wide. And the intent there is to have the lots backing up, each lot backing up to green space. And that is not just green space that will not be utilized. That green space will be utilized in a number of ways. One, we will try to maintain what trees we can there. The mature trees will stay to the best of our ability, but we know that there are going to be trees that are going to be removed for retention and so forth. And as a result, we're going to come back in and manicure and detail those areas with walking paths, with landscaping, with exercise stations, so that they can be a true amenity to the development. In meeting with staff about the project, there were concerns about the traffic flow and our driveways. As Ms. Lambert mentioned, we have modified the plan to have our primary drive be the center drive. The drive on the east side will be two-way. It'll be in and out at this point in time. However, with the understanding that if and when Emerald Forest is extended further, that location will not have a median cut. So that driveway will have to convert to a right in and right out at that point, and we're comfortable with that. On the east side, we have a cul-de-sac, and you may note that cul-de-sac is actually within the parish right-of-way, which is somewhat peculiar, and we met with Public Works and the engineers to discuss that issue. These will be public streets. This is not a gated development. And that area, for whatever reason, when Emerald Forest right-of-way was acquired, there's dead land there. There's really nobody knows why the parish acquired it or what they intend to use it for. But Public Works has no opposition to us constructing the turnaround there, and neither does engineering. Now, it is our intent, if this plan is approved, to come back before you, sitting as the Planning Commission, to request revocation of a portion of that, since it is dead land, and we can try to attach it into our development. But for now, we're showing the cul-de-sac in that location. We also have visitor parking within the development, which is somewhat unusual. We've noticed in other garden home developments that there is a problem when there are functions, and we feel the need to provide that additional parking so that there's not parking in the street. Now, to conclude, with regards to the staff's concern about the PUD and the lack of creativity or flexibility in the design, I would respectfully disagree. Ms. Lambert has worked very hard with us to try to get a plan that works. But I would submit to you that given what we have to work with, I think we have got about as much as we can out of that. This is not a 100-acre site. This is not a site that lends itself to a great deal of creativity beyond what we have done. We've got a rectangle, and it's 14 acres. With that as our canvas, we have created 25% green space. If we do an A4A development, you don't have that green space. We have every lot backing up to green space. If we do an A4 development, you do not have that. We have walking paths throughout that connects each of these green spaces. If we do an A4, you don't have that. Those are peculiar and unique to the PUD. Is it as creative as perhaps some of the larger developments? No, but I would ask you to consider the size of what we're working with and what we could possibly accomplish. I think we've done a pretty good job there. I would also ask you to think about if the development is done with its existing zoning. I mean, if we develop this as an NC4 and an NC1, you don't have any of the amenities that I mentioned. So I feel like we have brought some things to the table. If we could do more, we would like to do more, but we've gotten about as much out of this plan as we can do. And with that said, again, it's a unique property. It is surrounded by unique uses in the hospital and the apartment complex, and we think this is an excellent transition. And we would respectfully request your approval of not only the zoning, but of the PUD overlay as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roan. Is there any opposition that wishes to speak at this time? Commissioners? Mr. Matthews?
Well, Paul, first of all, I think there are some good things here. All the homes backing up to green space is a good thing. There's no question about that. I like that. The fact that the green space is something more than just inaccessible swamp, as we see in some of these things, that's another plus. Visitor parking, again, I like that better than some of the garden home things we've seen where there is a problem, there is no place to park. That being said, I tend to agree more with the staff that while if we granted A4 for this, you could shoehorn a lot more houses in here. There's nothing saying we would grant A4. And as a PUD, this is just to me very cookie cutter. There's very little imagination other than the green space, which you really need anyway. I don't particularly like it. I would move to deny.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews to deny. Do we have a second? Motion
Mr. Chairman,
fails by first.
are you voting on A4A or on the PUD?
Which would we have to hear first?
You've got to take
You would have to hear the
76.
zoning first, the
Well, then
A4A.
I would vote to deny the A4A.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the A4A zoning. Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Ms. Casabon?
Yes, looking and knowing where this is, I agree. And looking at the need for the smaller garden homes, and I know how many trips my aunts and uncles take to the doctors that where this is actually located. I
So they're
tend
gonna
to agree that location-wise, and I do like the green space, that it is just one of those things that we maybe could get more creative, but I think that it's doable. I like it. I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Casabon to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Todd. This is on the 077, the zoning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Doug, you have your light on?
I get
I-
to reset it, if you don't mind.
Well, I had it, I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I hit the wrong thing.
Okay.
Oh, my. Okay, you bet.
Okay. Paul, if, just looking at the sheet, a couple of 3 questions come to mind. Along the Emerald Forest Boulevard, it shows a brick wall fence,
Yes, sir.
all right? The fence shows going across the cul-de-sac. It shows going across the roads.
That would be an error.
Okay.
That was an error.
All right. The second question is, if my little old eyesight doesn't deceive me, it shows a ditch, a proposed new ditch, before you get to the cul-de-sac. How do they propose to get across the ditch?
That will be culverted.
It's going to be a culvert.
That will be culverted, yes,
All
sir.
right, and who will be responsible for maintaining that area that's labeled Section 14, all that landscaped area?
The landscaping will be the responsibility of the developer and/or the homeowners association, regardless of whether that area is ultimately acquired through revocation or not. In our conversations with Public Works, they were clear that they would not maintain it, and if we landscaped it, and if they needed to remove that for any drainage concerns or require that we remove it, that they would have the right to do that, and we have no objection to that.
Okay. And the other 3 sides of the development, you got the brick wall across the Emerald Forest Boulevard side. The other 3 sides, is that to be fenced in any way?
At this point, we're not proposing fencing, except for on the north side where we meet the hospital. We had intended to construct a fence in that area.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the A4A zoning on zoning case 12-08-077. Please vote. Motion carries. Okay, now we need to have a motion and on 076. This is the PUD, or any discussion. Ms. Casabon?
Yes, if there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Casabon to approve, seconded by Mr. Hines. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Zoning case 12-078 motion.
Is that you?
Zoning case 12-08-078. Existing zoning is A1A Suburban District. Proposed zoning is PF1 Public Facilities District, 1.15 acres. Petitioner is Ray M. Newton, owner's Fire District 12. Parcel located at the northeast intersection of Louisiana Highway 36 and Louisiana Highway 21, being 19375 Highway 36, Covington, Ward 3, District 2. Ms. Staff.
There's an existing fire station at this location. PF1 is the appropriate zoning class for this use, and staff supports the request and recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Please
My name is
state-
Stephen Crennel. I'm with the fire department, and I just wanted to ask for y'all to go along with this.
Thank you. Please fill out a speaker card. Any opposition? Commissioners?
It's in the district.
Ms. Casabon?
This is just bringing, I think, the existing in compliance to what's been there. So I make a motion to approve.
And second.
Seconded by Mr. Willie. Any discussion? Please vote. Mr. Willie? You just wanted to see if we were paying attention, right? Thank you. All right, item 16, zoning case 12-08-079. The existing zoning is A1 Suburban. Proposed is A1A Suburban District, 7.44 acres. Petitioner Gene D. Booth. The owner is Gene D. Booth. Parcel located on the south side of Thompson Road, west of Louisiana Highway 25, being 15086 Thompson Road, Folsom, Louisiana, Ward 2, District 3. Staff?
At this time, staff that feel that there's no compelling reason to recommend approval and would like to recommend denial of the case.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak on this case? Yes, sir. Please state your name, and if you haven't filled out a speaker card, please do so.
My name is Jane Booth. I'm the petitioner.
Okay.
I'm the fifth generation on this property. I inherited it from my father. He inherited from his father, which inherited from his father. The wife and I are not getting any younger. I just got out of the hospital not long ago. I haven't worked since the 27th of April. Been in the hospital, and the wife and I just decided to downsize, and instead of moving to another area or some other place, we decided just to move over on 3 acres of the section and sell the main house we have right now to leave us from a heavy mortgage, and build a little smaller home on that side, which had a trailer on there, which my son lived in for a while. But the trailer is gone now, but we decided to build a home in its place of the trailer. And this would be 5.44 acres with the home on it, and then 3 acres for us to build a little cottage for my wife and I. And that's basically what we want to do, you know.
All right, sir. All right, let me see if there's any opposition. No opposition. I'll turn it over to the commissioners. Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. So you're basically planning just to kind of subdivide this?
Well, we cutting it down to 3 acres for us to build a little smaller home, downsize from a bigger house.
Okay. So
And
the other 4.44 acres then?
yeah, with the other house existing
Okay,
on the property.
All right, I thought you said 5 acres, and I was just wondering because it didn't add up, but,
It'll be 4.44.
right.
And then 3 acres.
You know, I don't have.
The
a problem.
3 acres would be on the east side.
Right.
It's already got electricity, sewage, everything there.
Right.
We just going to build a house there.
Right.
For the wife and I, because we're
Sure.
just small.
I think this is similar to being able to, you know, have a person to donate the property to a kin, whatever, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Davis to approve, seconded by
fine.
Mr. Willie. Ms. Casabon? Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Zoning case 12-08-080. Existing zonings, MD1 Medical Residential District and A3 Suburban District and A4 Single Family Residential. Proposed zoning is MD1 Medical Residential District, A3 Suburban District, A4 Family Residential District, and PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay. It's 150.97 acres. Kelly McHugh is the petitioner. The owner is Delta Land Holding Company, LLC. Representative is Wayne Burris. Parcel located on the south side of East Brewster Road, west of Tchefuncte River, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
A single-family residential subdivision of 214 lots is proposed to be developed on a site. 3 different types of lots or residential units are proposed, and I put a little table to show you the different number of lots and lot sizes. Staff recommends approval for the PUD designation. Staff feels that the proposal meets the purpose and the objectives of a planned unit development overlay. However, additional passive and active amenities must be provided within the western green space area.
Okay. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioners. The 150 acres that is the subject of our request is located on the south side of Sterling's River Chase development, and it's adjacent to the new phase of Tchefuncte Country Club's development in that area. And this track was actually part of the same family track that the Tchefuncte Country Club new phase was, and came out of that very same title. We're not requesting a zoning change this evening. It is simply the overlay. Our current zoning, which is A3 and A4 primarily, there's a very small sliver of MD1, but the vast majority of the tract is zoned A3, about 147 acres. The remainder, about 4 acres, is zoned A4. We're proposing all single-family residences, 214 lots on the property. The density calculation with our zoning categories would afford us about 232 lots. So we're at 1.4 units an acre, about 18 lots less than the maximum zoning would allow. As staff noted, we've got 3 different type lots on the track. We range from about 100 by 150 down to 24 garden home lots in the bottom corner. The plan provides for 55 acres of green space, or about 36% of the entire tract. That percentage takes into account half for the water areas of the canal, which I'll get to in a moment. With the PUD, obviously central utilities are required. I wanted to note that the utilities for this site will be handled off-site, and in fact will be pumped to the existing facility for Utilities Inc. on the northwest quadrant of Highway 21. As required by the PUD, we also have a number of amenities, including a raised walkway, gazebo, pier, boat slips, as well as a natural walking path that circumvents some of the green space areas. If you'll notice on the plan, we do propose a canal to be constructed that would provide access to the river. It'll provide boat access to the Oxbow Lake and also onto the river itself. Now, we've been working with the Corps for about 4.5 years on this design, and the design before you today is what is currently before the Corps and what we expect to have the permit issued on in the very near future. Through that process, we have also obtained our DEQ water quality certification with this plan, as well as our coastal zone permit. I would note that the excavation of the canal will be done in a manner that all of the material that is excavated will be removed off-site. As part of our core permit, You won't have a situation where the fill material excavated will be used to fill lots and so forth. All fill will be removed from the site. This track does contain some wetlands, but we have taken great care to try to preserve particularly the sensitive wetlands on the site. In fact, we are only impacting 4.5 acres. Of the 150-acre track, only 4.5 acres are being impacted. Those 4.5 have already been mitigated. As part of our obligation to the Corps, we are also going to be creating a 32.4-acre conservancy area. That conservation servitude will run in favor of the parish and will protect that green space and those wetlands in perpetuity. I also wanted to point out to you the elevations on this ground. You might be under the impression, because of its proximity to the river, that we are in the lower elevations and perhaps we'll need excessive fill or we'll have to build on piers or something of that nature. To the contrary, in fact, the land that is being developed is generally the high ground. As part of our core process, we were required to preserve, as I said, the lower areas. So almost all of our lots are not located in a flood hazard area. They are in B or C. Of those few lots that are in a flood hazard area, most of them have a home site that is above the base flood elevation and not in the flood hazard area. There are only a very small handful of lots in this entire development that are in fact in a flood hazard area, and in those instances, the elevation of those lots are only off by about a foot. So I say that so that you understand that to construct the homes in this development, there will not be the need for excessive fill or hardly any fill in most instances. We know that there is a concern by some of the residents in the area, and I'm sure you will hear tonight, regarding sediment control and stormwater pollution control. First of all, we were required to demonstrate our plan for handling each of these issues with the other governmental bodies that issue permits or deny permits on those very issues. That's the Corps and the DEQ. With regards to sediment control, as I said, all of the fill excavated will leave the site. So fill will not be bermed, it will not be allowed to leach back in to the canal or into the river. The area to excavate, it's important to note, is a non-wet area. We are excavating the uplands. We are required to and will employ the EPA's best management practices for sediment control. We will excavate starting on the furthest end of the canal from the intersection with the Oxbow and work to the Oxbow. We will not make the connection to the Oxbow until all of the excavation is complete, but more importantly, till all of our slopes are stabilized, which means they are grassed. So we will not make that connection where we have dirt banks that are subject to leaching and siltation. We are obligated to do that for the Corps. We are obligated to do that for our water quality certification with DEQ, and we know that that's something that the parish would be keenly interested in as well. With regards to the stormwater, the after-construction runoff, and how will that affect the area? Again, we have gone through painstaking detail. Mr. McHugh's office has put together an entire plan to address the issue. And in fact, again, utilizing the EPA's best management practices, we have a plan that will collect the water, that will transport that water through grassed open swales to catch basins, where it is then either going to be drained into a sedimentation pond where it can filter out before entering into the canal or the river, or it will filter into the preserved wetlands at the south end of the project. Now, using those wetlands for that purpose is the preferred method and part of the best management practices of the EPA. The bottom line with regards to stormwater runoff and the report that I just mentioned to you, and as was found by DEQ, the runoff from this site after the development will be a higher quality water than it is in its present state. And I know that might be difficult to understand and believe just from a practical standpoint, but having read the report, having seen DEQ's water quality certification, I can tell you that that is in fact the case. In conclusion, again, we're not requesting a zoning change. Our zoning is in place. Our density is less than is allowed under the existing zoning. We've got more green space than is required. We have preserved the sensitive wetlands, and we have tried to make the best use of the property that we have. We've tried to take advantage of those characteristics in this location. We think that is what our plan represents. We think it's an excellent plan, and we would respectfully request your approval this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
Thank you.
We have some speakers that want to speak in opposition. Sandra Sliffer. Okay, well, we'll go with Rick Wilkie.
We'll start with Rick Wilkie. Rick Wilkie, I'm president of a group called the Association of Associations. A lot of you all who have been here around have seen me many times, but those who are new, it's a group of homeowners associations and residents who live in the Highway 21, 1085, 1077 area that pays attention to land use issues in the area. There's not been a lot going on of late. That's why I haven't been up here in front of you recently. We feel like largely this is putting the cart before the horse in terms of actually even taking the time to discuss this tonight. The permits that are needed, Mr. Morone talked about some of it, but one of the permits that they have states, which is the coastal use permit, item G says, this project is located in the vicinity of a Louisiana-designated natural and scenic river. The applicant must obtain authorization from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Scenic Rivers Program for this permit to be valid. So they have a permit that requires another permit that they haven't applied for. The scenic river plan for the Tchefuncte states that the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries can and will enforce its authority to regulate and require a permit for those activities on private property that will directly, significantly, and negatively impact the ecological integrity of the river. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries has stated that they had told the developers that they need to provide the information and get the permit. And that doesn't mean that they will or won't get the permit, but if they don't get the permit, then this whole plan, we're wasting time. But anyway, but let me talk about the plan itself, because whether or not you agree with that, this plan has a lot of green space on it, except most of that green space is wetlands, or it is of the canals that they're planning on digging. The paths they have, there's a nice long path with 2 entry points, one of which runs all along this beautiful power line right-of-way. The other access, so you can walk from one end to the other along the power line right-of-way, or you can go around to the end of it, a dead end, and back up and walk back. That's basically the only amenities on one side as far as recreation. The other is you can drive around to the other side of the canal, and the access and the recreation is some piers and boat slips. It's not like a whole lot of recreation. The staff has recommended at the western side of the property put in some recreation, but that doesn't make sense to put it down there that wouldn't be used. It just doesn't work. It looks like they're trying to fit a lot of lots on this property. Claiming they have a whole lot of green space is true, except that it's not really usable. I just think that this thing actually ought to wait, and then if they have the permits, then look at it, but also it needs to be redesigned and not approved as a PUD in its current form.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. Anyone else wish to speak? Ms. Dodd.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Dodds, and I live not too far. I live very near the river, but across the river from this development. My major concern is that in order to access the river, this development is going to cut into the bank of the Oxbow. Therefore, we're going to be cutting into the riverbank because the Oxbow is part of the river. This is going to be extremely precedent-setting, and if one cut goes in the river, we're going to find a lot more. This is a designated scenic stream. We should not be doing that to this river. There has been no documentation that I could find that water-based, excuse me, water-based development is warranted. Why do we need a water-based development, which is the reason for digging all of these canals? Back in 2008, when this was first proposed and the permit request came through, the league wrote in opposition to what it was doing and to what the developer was doing. And we asked then for some reason to dig these canals. Why do we need another water-based development so far from the mouth of the river? This is up by I-12. This is not a good scenario. It is not a good plan for the river. My concern is with the river and with the fact that we are setting a terrible precedent by cutting into the bank of the river. There is no natural waterway entering the river at this point. Down below, we have the Ponchatoula, we have Bayou Desir, we have the Bayou Monga, we have Bayou Chinchuba, way down, and we have the Bayou Tetlours, all of which are natural accesses to the river. Nobody cut into the riverbank to do anything like this. And I would hope that you all would consider the precedent that is going to be set if this plan is allowed. Because the only way that this development can work is if they cut into the riverbank. That's a very important consideration for all of you to make tonight. There's an older version of the current zoning ordinance that had a section in it. It was 523 in 2005, and it set standards for impacts on natural and scenic rivers. And it says that prior to any final decision on any application for a rezoning or for a permit of these activities referring to scenic streams that may have the potential for significant impact on such waterways or property, an evaluation shall be made of the impact the activities may have on the unique character and value of such waterways and properties. The evaluation and final determination on any such application by the reviewing authority should ensure compatible uses and development of such property so as to maintain the natural and physical features of the waterways that are included in the natural and scenic river systems, and the aesthetic values of the property situated along and accessible to the natural and scenic rivers of St. Tammany Parish. I grant you, I don't think this language was taken into the new ordinance, although I think it should have been. But I think it's valuable to you to consider that this was the operating procedure prior to the new ordinance. We would hope that you all would seriously consider the impact of cutting through the banks of the river. In order for this plan to be valid, that's what has to be done. Please reconsider the value of having a water-based development that will damage the river. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodd. We have two other cards here. Paul Lee.
Yes, sir. My name is Paul Lee, and I live in Defuncta Country Club Estates, and I speak on behalf of the board. We agree with the AOA in that two principal problems are very apparent. There has not been permission received from the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries to make this cut into the bank of the river, and it's very dramatic damage, frankly, to this very beautiful Oxbow Lake. we have that concern, and we do think the cart is somewhat before the horse. We also, as a contiguous property owner, have the concern with the size and location of the lots along what would be a border with our property. We're very concerned about the designation of this green space as such. It's in some areas entirely under the power lines, and of course, as you know, the space under a power line, like the one that backs up to on 21, just across from Chick-fil-A and so forth, looking at people's backyards is fairly unattractive, and it's unattractive for them to look at the power lines. On our side of the power lines in question, we've left a significant buffer, and we ran our street out to near the edge of our green space, so that we have green space, street, front yard, and then you're looking at the front of the house. Our concern about this particular set of lots, particularly 170, 169, 168, and so forth, is that those backyards are under the power lines. And that is an area that is abutting our view, and frankly, we've done our best to make that view, their view, attractive as we can, and made the depth as great as we can. And we'd like to see the same sort of activity on their side. But the truth of the matter is, this plan wasn't presented to our board until 2 weeks ago. We haven't had a chance to put it before the whole board. We think a combination of that fact and the fact that they don't have the permits to dig what is the basis of the entire neighborhood, and that's the very significant waterway, brings me to the conclusion that it's premature for this body to vote on at this point, because we can't even tell if it can happen. Number one, and number two is that the buffers are just insufficient.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up. You're over time right now.
Sure, our principal other objection, of course, is the lack of a buffer. In fact, on several lots, there's no buffer at all down towards the very bottom corner of the property. And we'd like to have the opportunity to talk with these gentlemen. We spent the whole evening speaking with them, and we have made some progress in that regard. What we'd like to see at the very least, of course, is not a denial, but a tabling. And as Mr. Lauren and Ms. Kasabam and Mr. Willie know, I've been appearing before this body for a very long time, and we try to be reasonable. Defuncta tries to come out in favor of things that we should be in favor of, and comments on things like this, and simply asking for a delay while we work on a mutually agreeable solution, and while we find out whether or not this can even be dug, seems to be reasonable. So I would certainly request a tabling, or the new term is a delay. I heard somebody talking about that. We would really like to have an opportunity to visit more with the developers and have a chance to see whether or not the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries is even going to allow this before this body approves the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We had one more card, but I don't see Sandra in oh, there she is. You're actually out of time as far as opposition. Okay, thank you. Mr. Marone, rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. Will I have any additional time as they had?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me begin with the idea of the table, and with all due respect to my friend Mr. Lee and to the commission, we have been at this for many years, so this is the first time this group is seeing it, and we would ask this commission to please make a decision tonight. We want you to make a favorable decision, but we really need a decision on this, and I do not believe that a table will be in anyone's interest. We certainly will continue to talk with Mr. Lee and with the members of the Defuncta board. We talked with them tonight, and we will continue those discussions, but tabling, I would respectfully suggest, is not the answer. I would ask each of you to think back, those that have been on the commission a very long time will have a bit of a better perspective, but how many times has somebody come to you at this podium asked you to rezone something when every other permit has been granted? I've been doing this a long time. I've never done that. I'm not aware of anybody that's ever done that. People come get their project zoned, then they go fight with the Corps for 2 years. to suggest that the cart is before the horse because we're coming for a PUD overlay, not preliminary. We can't put a bulldozer in there before we get our core permit or before the scenic river permit, which I'll address in a minute, I would suggest to you is not a valid argument. The cart and the horse are properly positioned. The scenic river permit, all three speakers mentioned that, and that has been brought to my attention before. Yesterday, I was involved with a conference call with Mr. Keith Cascio, which is the head of the Scenic Rivers permitting group with the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. During that call, the question was asked point blank, Keith, does this project require a Scenic Rivers permit? His answer was unequivocally, no. I've told you, it does not require a Scenic Rivers permit. So I say that so that you are aware of the information that I've been given. But let me say, if it is determined at any time after this that that information is incorrect, that this project requires a scenic river permit, then one of our obligations to the parish is before before a work order, that all other applicable permits have to be in place. And if we've got to go get a scenic rivers permit, then by all means we will. But as of yesterday afternoon, the gentleman that issues those permits says that we were not required to do so. We are likewise sensitive to connecting to the Oxbow. That's why we've taken a 4.5-year trek through all of these agencies and have been very careful and very meticulous about doing that. That issue was directly before the Corps and is directly before the Corps. And in fact, each of the individuals that appeared up here in opposition commented on this plan back in 07 and 08 to the Corps. And in fact, some of them have had discussions with the Corps as recently as yesterday. So there has been an ample opportunity to comment on that issue with the governmental body that regulates whether or not we have the ability to make that connection. I went through in some detail in my opening remarks about how that connection will be made. We recognize and we share their concern about making that connection. We're going to do it in a manner that is prudent and is responsible and is in accordance with our permit, which requires that. So I want the commission to be clear on that. With regards to the green space, we do have about 6 or 7 lots that are not under the power line, but the back property line does meet the right-of-way line. Now that right-of-way is 125 feet wide. Our property line, our subdivision property line, is in the middle of that. So the back lot line is just over 62 feet from the actual center line of the power line. In talking with Chifuncta's board on those 6 lots, we have no problem and intend to try to do some buffering in that regard. But I would submit to you that the green space that we have is more than adequate. It's 36% with half for the canal. Now, there was some suggestion that, well, we really don't have a lot of good green space. The vast majority of our green space is the highly sensitive wetlands. Now, I would think that that would be the areas that we would want to preserve, that the commission would want to, when possible, to preserve. Those are the areas we are preserving. Those are the highly functioning, the highly sensitive areas. Those are the ones we're setting aside. And I would submit that those are the ones that should be set aside. Those are not the areas that we should be building in this particular development or putting roads. So I think we have been very careful about choosing what green space to have, where it's located, how it functions, and designating it as such. With that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions after the rebuttal from the opponents, but we believe this is a good plan. We have more permits in place than most at this stage. We have our water quality certification. We have our coastal zone permit. We do not need a scenic river permit, and the core permit is in draft form, and we expect that to be issued any day or very soon. So we believe this is the right time. We have 2 steps again before we could ever actually go to work out there, being tentative and preliminary. So we would ask for your approval at this stage and allow us to move to the subsequent stages.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Mr. Wilkie.
Very briefly, I already said I have some objections to the design of the plan in itself, so I don't know that it's good to be approved as it is, even if you don't worry about the permitting. But a quick note here. A note from Paul Lee a couple of days ago. I have just been informed by Paul Marone, Delta's attorney for the PUD, that Delta does not need a permit from the DFW. Barbara Dodd sent this to Mr. Keith Cassio with the Wildlife and Fisheries, and his response was, "I certainly have said no such thing," was his first sentence, and goes on from there. But anyway, the statement that he has said they don't need a permit is Mr. Cassio has said is false.
Okay, thank you. Any further rebuttal?
On behalf of Defuncto, particularly while these issues of whether they're allowed to do the dredging that is the core of the project are determined, I think we're just asking for some time to meet with the developers and look at the buffers that are in place, and because there are as many lots packed into the remaining space as humanly possible. And yes, there's been discussion about green space dedicated and the sensitive wetlands preserved and so forth, but those are areas that could have never been used in the first place. If you notice, they're all out by the river on the other side of the oxbow and not reachable. And I applaud them for not trying to develop that or build a bridge or what have you. But the core issue is we haven't had a chance to fully vet these issues. We developed the other half of this property. We bent over backwards to put in as much green space and to buffer this area. And frankly, we don't feel as if we're getting the same treatment. And our principal issue is the buffer. And if we have time, by virtue of a delay from this body, then we can have those issues addressed and hopefully come back here and suggest that we have had those issues addressed and that we don't have any reason to oppose it. But as a contiguous property owner down a very long border, that's what we'd ask, is simply a tabling or a delay until we've had a chance to discuss these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Ms. Sandra, you've got about 50 seconds.
That's all I'll need. Thank you. Sandra Slifer, President of the League of Women Voters of St. Tammany. As Paul mentioned, we have commented on this numerous times, that I would like to just voice my agreement with the statements that Rick Wilkie and Paul Lee and Barbara Dodds made. And I ask that if you do not postpone this, that you deny it. But I would hope that Mr. Marone would change his mind and allow for this, as per Defuncto's request, for it to be delayed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going to close the floor and turn it over to the commission. Ms. Casabon.
Yes. Paul, you said that y'all have been working on this for 4 years? Have we seen this?
No.
No.
No, this is the first time that it's come before this commission.
That it's come before us.
That's correct.
Just want to make sure.
That's correct.
I understand about the permits, and you're correct, that we do, most projects are contingent on whether you get the proper permits, and you can't do it unless you get the proper permits. But without having a permit, it just does not seem natural to change the makeup. I know we do it in some degree, but I don't think on this board that I've ever actually went into the river and approved. In other words, I'm thinking that the only way for you to develop is to do the canal, you need this dug into the river to do the oxbow, to do the canal, to do this development. Is that correct?
The canal is a central part.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And I don't think I have ever seen that before this board in my years that I've been here. So it's a big step, and it's a major step that, the permitting process, that's one thing, but I don't always agree with the permit department. I don't understand how they can sometimes change things, but it does come out as far as drainage and elevation and floods and stuff. It does improve an area, but where this is, and it's 214 lots, I have a problem, first of all, with the density of it and the fact that we're changing a major landscape of or flow or whatever to develop this property. I have a lot of questions. I guess what I'm saying is, if you want it to go forward tonight, I would have to, right now, I would propose a denial. But there's still some information that I would like on it, that I would like more information on, or maybe possibly less density, come back with a less dense, and then, as you said, if the Corps approves this, that, it's on as far as development on a lower scale of lots, there's a lot of questions that I have, that if you can have those questions for us, or, as a commission in the next 30 days, I would move to table it. So, if you want a decision.
We would like a decision. If I could just comment on the density issue. I mean, the density, our underlying zoning is set. The density is set, and we are less than that. So if you denied this PUD and we just went in and developed it, we would have about 18 more lots than we have now. So our density is less than our existing zoning allows.
But could you develop it without doing the canal? That's what my question is. Can it be developed without this canal?
The property could certainly be developed without the canal. Our intent, though, is not to develop it without, is to have the canal. And I mean, I guess if the commission is going to take the position that we should have our permits, then I need a list of what permits I need to have to come back before you. So that I understand that.
I understand the permits. What I'm saying is, I don't like the idea of the canal, I guess is what I'm saying, whether you're permitted. I mean, I know you have to have the permits to do it. But it just scares me to see that, if we go into I don't know what impact that has. I mean, how it's going to affect. So I'm just telling you, I have questions. And y'all may have been working on this for 4 years, but this is the first time that we've seen it. So I'll turn it over to
Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, Paul, the concern about the river cut may or may not be valid. I don't know. But that is something that we have no province over whatsoever. That's the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, as I understand it. And if it's a bad thing, I assume that they will deny your permit. If it's not a bad thing, I assume that they will grant your permit. If they deny your permit, the PUD as envisioned here will not work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. As I understand the process, this will come back to us in planning. Is that correct? So we will have a chance to discuss the lot layout, the number of lots, the buffer zones, and all those type of things. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't know that the number of lots would be at issue.
Okay, well, and it's less than you would be allowed under the current zoning.
Correct.
One question I have, assuming that it's granted, or a couple of questions I have, assuming it's granted. This canal, from what little I do know about things like that, will take some maintenance. Are you all going to have a mandatory homeowners association?
Yes.
Okay, and will the homeowners association have the ability to solicit sufficient funds to maintain something like this? Some of these homeowners associations have caps on dues, and that could be a real problem.
Right, that will not be the case here. The homeowners association will be established to, in a manner so that all of the amenities, including the canal, can be properly maintained.
Good. The easternmost green space, this is all sensitive wetlands, and really you would not want it to be accessed or used. Is that correct?
That's correct, and in fact, that green space is part of the large conservation servitude area that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. What about the western part?
The western part, that is the area that is, now when you say western...
I'm talking a little triangle up in here, basically, I guess. No, west.
Oh,
West?
here?
Yeah.
Here, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is, there are some wetlands in that area that are being avoided, right about in here. And that's one of the reasons why that was left vacant.
Because the staff did make a comment about that you probably do need some additional active and maybe passive recreation facilities in there, and I agree with that. That's pretty much all the questions I have for you. Mr. Wilkie, I do have a question for you, sir. You indicated that there was a reply from the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do. I've got scribbles on it, but this was, this one was, Barbara, you said it's a, yeah. We have a copy. Barbara has another copy.
I'd like to see that if it is in fact saying that Mr. Marone's understanding may be an error.
It's the blue. One without scribble? Yeah,
Depending what the scribbles are, I guess.
It doesn't matter. It's just noting a couple of items.
That's all I have for right now.
Mr. Davis?
Paul?
This is from Jeff.
Yes.
Is the developers, once this canal is dug, does he envision to have it bulkheaded all the way to the oxbow?
No.
So it's all gonna be open?
That's right. Part of our permit is that where the lots, the back end of these lots will be grassed, and there will not be bulkheading in that area.
Wouldn't that actually be more beneficial in case there's, rising waters and stuff to maintain any erosion?
Well, I
properties,
think, one, there is a fall on the back of those lots that should be adequate, and having the grass there is part of our overall plan for, with the Corps and so forth.
And will there be boathouses in this canal for all the boats?
They will not be prohibited by the development. They would have to get permitting from the appropriate agencies, but we would not prohibit that.
Yeah, this board, as far as the permits go, Wildlife and Fisheries and the Corps of Engineers, as far as that goes, they do their jobs. I mean, that's how I feel about this. I'm looking at the overall zoning issue. I actually like the PUD design. I think that the diverse sizes of the lots and stuff is very well planned. I think maybe tabling this would not be a good idea. I think we should make a decision on this tonight, and that's my personal opinion.
Buck, you had the comment?
Yeah, as Martha mentioned a few minutes ago, this is obviously my first night here, but this is the first time I've seen this kind of detail on these drawings. And
This is
I think
unusual
it-
at this point in time.
This is in my backyard. This is a big development. And we've had much smaller developments where we didn't rush to judgment, where we took time to have a meeting to get the interested parties together. And I get the feeling that that's what Rick and Paul are asking of Paul Marone right now. I'm like Martha, if it were right now for me, I would have to vote a denial, but I don't know that I'm opposed to it. I just don't think there's been enough communication about it to see if there's not some kind of way to make it work.
Mr. Manella?
I'm fairly new at this myself, but as I look at it and I see what zoning is, if this canal were natural, and this is a question to staff, we're not zoning the canal, are we? If it was natural, didn't have to have a cut, which requires Corps or Wildlife and Fishery permits, that is not the authority granted to this board, correct? So if it was natural, we would zone the land, not the water. Is that correct?
But the owner owns the interior. So it's a complete rezoning of the entire parcel. Hopefully I'm understanding your question,
Well,
sir. I'm
the
sorry.
question was raised by Chifuncta Estates and the other opposition, whereby the tremendous concern relative to changing the river or cutting into the river. But that's not our expertise. That's the Corps and Wildlife and Fisheries to determine, correct?
Dave, let me
If
refer to Terry on part of your question there and let him answer it, because it really kind of gets into a legal question.
Thank you.
Currently, you're rezoning the land. The land is there, so when you do your rezone, it's on the entire parcel of ground. Whether they subsequently grant a permit, if a permit's required, to dig the canal is beyond this board.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Any other discussion? All right, we need a motion. We had a motion, but no second a few minutes ago. What's the will of the commission?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Matthews to approve, seconded by Mr. Davis. Please vote. Motion fails. We need 6 votes to approve. The vote is 4-3. 4 in favor, 3 nay. So motion fails to approve. Okay, thank you. All right,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, does the issue automatically go without recommendation onto the council, or does an appeal have to be filed?
You should file an appeal.
Thank you.
okay, item 18, zoning
Mr. Chairman,
case.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
does it go to the council as a denial?
Yeah.
No, it goes as a failure. In effect,
Failure to approve.
Right, because it was a positive motion that was made, and it failed, so it goes up to the full council for hearing upon his motion, if he appealed.
Okay.
Okay, item 18, zoning case 12-08-081. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is PF1 Public Facilities District. It's a 1-acre tract. The petitioner is Ray M. Newton. The owner is Alan Rickey. Parcel located on the north side of Harrison Avenue, west of Flowers Drive, Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
Considering the location of the site and the purpose of the PF1 zoning district, which is to provide a location for governmental and other institutional uses to the public, staff does not have any objections to the request. Note that the purpose of this request is to allow for a new fire station to be built on the site. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can expound a little bit more on this particular one than I did on the last one. With the density of the population in the Tammany Hills area, we've been looking for a piece of property in this area for a while. This piece of property is one that we can afford. We plan to put a fire station on it. That's the only purpose that we're doing this. We have a agreement to purchase the piece of property, providing with all the contingencies that we pass the zoning, that it passes wetlands and everything goes through. So that's what we're requesting it for.
Okay. Any opposition? We got some opposition.
My name is Linda Ray, and I live in Singing Rivers, and this is the 3rd time the residents along the corridor on Harrison from 190 to 59 have come before either the council or the zoning board to object to any changes along there. First off, we don't want the changes because it would increase more traffic. We sure they would have to have a traffic light where the fire station's going to be. And we in Singing Rivers, and I'm sure in Tammany Hills, they don't have sewerage, public water. They have wells. How is the fire department going to put out a fire if they don't have water available along there? He mentioned the density of Tammany Hills. How are they going to put out a fire except by using what they have in a truck? And we all know if it's a bad fire, that's not going to work. So before you all vote to approve this, I ask that you consider the fact that we object to anything being put there that would increase more traffic. Would probably have to take down all the trees and everything along that area. And if you are inclined to vote to approve it, then I respectfully ask that you table this so that perhaps we can get a petition up, if that would help, to vote against it, or whatever it would take.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we've got some others. Yes, sir. Come on up, state your name, please.
Thank you, John. My name is Judge Joseph Greffer. I own lots in Singing Rivers, lots 4 and 5, that are adjacent or abut the property that they attempt to put the fire station on. This property has a servitude across the rear in favor of the drainage department of about 50 feet. It's an inadequate drainage because every time they get an inch of rain, the water comes out of the ditch and comes across my property. If they put a fire station next door, they can't build on the servitude, but if they pave up to the servitude, I'm sure I'm going to have an increase of water in my property. So my objection is to the use of the property as a fire station.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up and state your name.
My name is Mark Hovey. I live in Singing River subdivision off Harrison Avenue. I'm opposed to rezoning land to PF1 in this section in Harrison Avenue. Harrison is a major east-west route for local and through traffic. It's a narrow 2-lane street. It has no shoulders. There's already a lot of traffic on Harrison. Any public facilities on Harrison Avenue, especially a fire station, would increase traffic and become a disadvantage to present and future residents. Now, I've seen traffic accidents on Harrison Avenue. They can completely block the traffic. It's very difficult to use the side streets to bypass the accidents. Fire trucks coming from a fire station on Harrison could become stuck because of accidents. They couldn't back up, or they could be hindered in responding to emergencies. This could endanger the people that rely on this fire station. So for all these reasons, I am opposed to rezoning land to PF1 on Harrison.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
My name is Mickey Hawkshead, and I live off of Harrison Avenue. I am further down. I am in Arrowwood Estates, but I very often travel along Harrison, probably every day, more than once, twice a day. The street is not large enough to accommodate any more traffic than is on it right now. A fire station would definitely be out of line in that area, on that street. There's plenty other locations. Perhaps they would like to try Falconer, where it's more open as far as being able to build a fire station in there. Another thing that I think that you all should recognize is that there are all residential homes in that area. The commercial property is down on the end of 190 or down on 59. So this would be the introduction of a new zoning right in the middle of all the residential areas. I do realize that you're asking to have a fire station put in there, but under the PF1 Public Facilities District, it could also be open, as they say, to parish buildings, maintenance barn, bus station, or the cemetery. I don't believe that that's probably where they're headed, but still, for that type, if that zoning is changed, perhaps they will extend it to other lots along there to expand on this type of zoning. One other thing I'd like to ask, was a sign ever placed out on that property? There's a for sale sign on there, but showing that it was going to be, tried to be rezoned. Does anyone know that?
Then
It is?
Yes, ma'am. It was posted within the last 10 days. That's correct.
Because I don't remember seeing it, and I've passed up in there, and I looked for it particularly. One thing I'd just like to ask, I'm, opposed to it, but I'd like to ask for raise of hands for other people from the subdivisions that may not be speaking, but that are also opposed to this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, there's not.
Good evening. My name is Jake Palmer. I'm the president of the Arrowwood Estates Homeowner Association, a position that I was so lucky to get just recently. Still trying to get my hands around some of the stuff that's going on, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight to talk about this. I drive a pickup truck. I drive down Harrison Avenue every single day, twice a day, sometimes 10 times a day. When there's another pickup truck coming in the opposite direction of me, I kind of swerve over, and there's just not much room. There's a very deep ditch on both sides of the highway. I realize that it sounds kind of silly to be opposed to a fire station close to your house. I have a young family. There's a lot of benefits there. I would ask certainly for a tabling of this issue until some traffic studies could be done. There's some infrastructure work that would certainly need to be done to put a firehouse in there, and that's separate and apart from any of the homeowners that it would affect directly being close to that piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll go to rebuttal. Chief, you have some comments.
All right, I do have, obviously, I'm not popular in here tonight, but one of the things is, it's not going to change the amount of times the fire truck runs up and down the road, because it only responds to the calls that are already in that area. That's the reason that we're looking to put another fire station there, is the call volume that we already have. Also, we are rated by the Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, which gives the rating on the fire stations and the homeowner's insurance that everybody pays. Right now, we're barely maintaining our rating right now because they're requiring us to have a fire station in that area, because they only give you credit for 1.5 miles of driving distance from your actual fire station. So the fire truck would not be there any more than it already is. The calls are already in the area. I mean, we don't create the calls, so the fire truck would only leave when there is a call. Also, we do not intend on manning the fire station for about 3 years. We just want to build the fire station so that we can assist in our rating. Also, it was mentioned earlier about the water issue. What do we do now? I mean, we already have fires in the area. We already have things. It's not going to change anything about that. The other thing is, it's a very small piece of property. It's about a 1-acre piece of property. The only thing that's going to fit on it is the station and a driveway. We're not planning to do anything else, let the parish use it for anything else. Nothing else will be developed on it. I do agree with everybody that spoke about the road being narrow. But like I said, we run up and down the road anyway because we don't have a choice. We get calls there on a routine basis. It was mentioned earlier that to move it up by Falconer Drive, and I would love to do that, but this piece of property is $39,000, and property up by Falconer Drive is $100,000, if you're lucky. And it's the homeowners that have to pay the bill when that time comes. I mean, if we can, which number one, we can't afford to buy a piece there right now. But if we did, it would just be relayed to the taxpayers. So.
Okay, thank you. Any opposition, have any rebuttal?
Not really. I'd like to say one other thing. What makes him think that if he builds a fire station there, that somebody is going to want to buy the adjacent property and live next door to a fire station? I certainly wouldn't, would you? I mean, it really makes no sense to put a fire station in a residential area like that. They need to look closer down to 59 or closer down to 190. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please state your name.
I fell out of court. John Ventola, I'm the secretary of the Arrowwood Estates Homeowners Association. And of course, as others have mentioned, Harrison is anchored on each end by drugstores and one gas station and one soon-to-be-built gas station. But it's heavily traveled. And earlier tonight, we heard of a switching of property because of a certain area where one fire department is having traffic problems. And if I remember correctly, we switched CVS, and there was some changing of hands there. If we build a fire station, the first time these guys are going out on a call, it's going to be mass chaos. I just don't think it will work. Not with, if we can table this tonight and get some traffic surveys done, I think that would lead to a wiser decision. I understand about the property value and the lot being cheaper to acquire, et cetera. But I think we need to just table it for tonight, and then let's go at it again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other opposition wish to speak? All right, I'm going to close it. Ma'am, you wish to speak?
I think the issue regarding the cost of the property is not enough to force the decision to be made that this be used because of the cost of the property. I think it's just not important enough, considering the amount of traffic on the street and the feelings of the people in the residential areas completely surrounding it.
Thank you. Just come up, you still got a little bit of time. State your name, please.
Phyllis Irvin, I live on Flowers Drive, and we do desperately need this fire station in a residential area.
Please speak into the mic.
Between 5th Street and 11th Street, going down to Madison, is over 600 homes. That's not counting the A's and the B's. That's just part of the numbers, part of them. They get their own water, that's not a problem. But the other issue is, this is an actual lot in our subdivision, okay? We have fought for years, I've been coming for 18 years, to keep anything commercial off of Harrison Avenue. We do not need commercial on Harrison Avenue. We already have enough with the corners at the end on 190 and 59. There is going to have to be a little working with the drainage and the traffic. Because, you know, at least on 59 where there's a station, there's a center. Dog Pound Road, I drive a mail truck up and down Dog Pound Road every day. And, I don't see getting a fire truck on and off. You know, there would have to be some widening of the road or something. I don't know who would be responsible for that, the fire department or the parish. But there would have to be something done to actually make that better. Now, how would that work? Would you try to back the truck in there or pull it in? Pull it in. Okay. Yeah, because that could be really scary. But, I mean, it is needed. It is desperately needed. But it is a lot in our subdivision, number one. And does it lead us to more commercialization along that road because there are vacant lots? It's fine.
Thank you. Still got a little bit of time. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? I'm going to close the floor and turn it over to the commission. Ms. Casabon.
Yes. This road, since I've been on this commission, has been, we've looked at it 100 different things to it, but I have actually, and we look at public safety, and so I feel like we've been put in a position of, we try to do what the people want because it's their neighborhood, but we also look at their safety, that we do stuff, drainage and traffic and so on for their safety. So I don't know about y'all, but I feel like we've been put in a position like, I know for their safety we need a firehouse there. But on the other hand, they are so adamant about not wanting it that I would like it in the records that down the road when there's a fire and the fire department doesn't respond quick enough, that it's duly noted that you had the opportunity to have a firehouse close enough to respond for safety reasons. And that's, I'd like to hear what the rest of you have to say, but it's like safety needed, but not wanted in my neighborhood. And that's how I'm reading y'all. So,
Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Matthews?
Well, you're right, Martha. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't. from what the fire chief has said, certainly the floor has been closed. It's just for the commission now. Don't just stand there holding your hand up for nothing. From what the fire chief said, their current rating is tenuous because of the need in this area. By not putting a fire station here, many of you people will find your next homeowner's insurance bill to be a little bit higher than it was before, which is not a good thing. And I'm sure many of you will be very upset about that. The other side, too, is that if you can't get down Harrison Avenue, and I keep wanting to say Dog Pound, as the lady back there did, you're going to have problems putting out a fire in that area. And nobody wants to see anybody else's house burned down. That clearly is a bad thing. Is this the ideal place for a fire station on this fairly narrow road? No, I don't think so. It will create some traffic problems when the fire trucks go down that road. But when there's a fire, they're going down that road anyway. You're not going to keep fire trucks off of Harrison Avenue when there's a fire. They're going to come down Harrison Avenue. The building of this fire station, and you guys probably don't know this, will subject you all to mandatory traffic and drainage impact fees. Are you aware of that? Okay. Up till just recently, that was in question. If the council changes some of the ordinances, it may exempt you, but right now you're subject to those. So there will be some money to put a traffic signal or whatever's necessary there. And there will be some money maybe to improve the drainage by your home. I know that there's a lot of you all here that don't want this, but I believe the public safety concern overrides the traffic impact that you all are concerned about, and I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Mr. Davis. Mr. Willie?
I just have one more question of the fire chief here. You said, where y'all come out of now? Where's the station located?
Currently, we've got one in North Park, right off by Walmart, and we also have one at the intersection of Highway 21 and 36. And
So you are a good ways away then.
Exactly,
Very good
and that is the point. We're losing credit. The homeowners are losing credit in that area because we do not have a fire station in that area.
I don't think they worry about the credit so much. They don't mind paying higher insurance premiums, obviously, but I'm more concerned about the distance you haven't come now. And if you built a station there, how would you be leaving that area at all to go to other fires outside the Harrison Road area?
Well, I mean, currently we're operating 4 stations that are manned. All of our stations move to cover up
I know
other
y'all
stations.
assist other stations.
Correct. I mean, we have 63 square miles that we cover. So there would be a time, obviously, that when one station leaves to go to a different area, we pull our resources and move them from place to place. But it would be no different than what we do now.
Okay, I think you're so far away from this neighborhood now, I can see really the need to be in that neighborhood since there's such a dense population.
As one of the people mentioned earlier, the density there's well over 600 homes there. We only get 1.5 mile credit of road miles from the actual fire station.
They're not worried about the credit part.
I know they're not, but
I'm more worried about the safety and burning up.
All right.
I'm going to ask you a question now. You indicated that it would be approximately 3 years before it would be a manned station?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? Please vote. Motion carries. It's 6-1. Thank you. Item 19, zoning case 12-08-082. Existing zoning is I-1. Proposed zoning is NC6, Public Culture and Recreational District, 2.14 acres. Please exit the building, please. Petitioner Chuck Walker. Owners Parish Properties LLC, Chris Jean. Parcel located on the east side of Commercial Drive, north of Browns Village Road, being 114 Commercial Drive, Slide L, Ward 9, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan,
Just a minute. Folks, we need you to clear the building so we can go on with the meeting. Thank you. Okay.
2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with industrial uses. The site is currently surrounded by office warehouses and outdoor storage yard. Staff feel that there's no compelling to recommend approval and would like to recommend denial of the request.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Again, for the record, Jeff Shane of Jones Fussell, law firm in Covington, P.O. Box 1810, Covington 70434. I represent Parish Properties LLC, which is the owner of the property, and also Mr. Chuck Walker, who is the tenant and operates his business, North Shore Baseball and Softball Academy, at this location. This is an interesting case in that it's clearly a request for a down zone from the current I-1 to, as you'll see, the NC6. If you would take a look at the vicinity map in your packet, and I think that tells the story pretty well. This property is just north of Browns Village Road, excuse me, and my client owns a warehouse metal building that Mr. Walker leases and operates an indoor recreational facility. Indoor recreational activities are a permitted use in I-1. However, if he wishes to go outside the building and have any type of drills with the people that come to the academy to play baseball, softball, etc., maybe not surprisingly, but interestingly, no form of outdoor recreational activities are allowed in I-1. Now, as a practical matter, if you go into this region, into this area, you'll see that there are properties in the area that in fact have some outdoor recreation elements. Perhaps they're grandfathered, perhaps they're non-conforming. You have other, it's interesting that in some of our industrial parks throughout the parish, we have some recreational facilities that have located in those venues. In fact, it makes me wonder at some point if perhaps the parish might want to consider allowing outdoor recreational facilities as a permitted use in some limited manner in some of the industrial parks. But what we have tonight is not a request that you change the legislation. We took a look at what zoning classification would allow Mr. Walker to take his operation outdoor so that he would be able to still do all the things he does now in the building, but also to be able to provide individual drill opportunities for the participants in his academy outdoor. And the best zone for that, we believe, is NC6. I would like to stress that this is not going to be a baseball field. It is not set up for baseball games or for baseball competition. Some of those thoughts might make any of us think about impacts, meaning are we going to have lots of parents, lots of cars, lots of things that normally flow if you had baseball tournaments, things of that nature. Again, let me stress that this is an academy where Mr. Walker teaches baseball skills at both an individual and team level to those that attend the academy. I went to his facility last week, obviously a splendid indoor facility, but you can imagine the need to also want to let kids get on a diamond, a rubber, if you will, outside. Also to be able to let kids run bases, learn how to slide, learn how to do double play, rundown drills, a variety of things that you can't really do as well in an indoor facility. So don't picture the creation of a Field of Dreams baseball field. There's not going to be literally, some of the questions I asked, okay, are we going to have kids at bat that are going to be hitting baseballs all over the park? And it's not set up for that type of thing.
I would also, suggest to you that if you look at the vicinity map, although I respect staff's analysis of this, I think staff felt that probably to support the request might have been suggestive of a wrong zone or a spot zone. But I would just tell you that if you look at that area, there's really a combination of zones. And I don't know that NC6 is really going to hurt anybody in that area. You'll see that we have just in the immediate vicinity, HC3, I1, and A4A. And that's all literally within a stone's throw. So at the end of the day, this is a wonderful business in my view, because it's giving young people in our area and in the region something very positive to do. It's a good thing, I think, for them to learn the skills of how to play baseball. Mr. Walker's doing a great job indoor and would very much appreciate the opportunity to be able to do some of these things outdoor. So we ask that you consider recommending to the council that both of the parcels, and I might add one parcel has a building on it, as you can see, of 1.07. The other parcel is an undeveloped or vacant parcel, which is where these outdoor activities in part would be. We'd ask that you recommend that both parcels be rezoned NC6.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Any opposition? I'm going to close the floor, turn it over to the commission. Mr. Davis.
I only see one parcel.
There's two there.
Is it?
They're very similar, but they're two
okay,
different
I'm sorry.
parcels.
So they're exactly both 1.07 acres?
yes.
Wow, okay.
Mr. Matthews.
Jeff, the vacant lot is really the one you're interested in setting up this outdoor facility, is that correct?
No, sir. We also have some outdoor activity possibilities around the building, on the lot that has the building on it.
Okay, so the building doesn't take up the 1.7 acres?
Not all of it.
Okay, so.
There's actually will be some areas, I'm going to call it a batting cage type facility, and again, what I'll call some pitching lanes that are constructed behind the building. So we would need to have some outdoor activity on both parcels.
Okay.
Certainly the vacant parcel will be exclusively outdoor.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear about.
So I had at one time thought about keeping one I1 and the other NC6.
That's what I was thinking, if that's what you
And
needed.
it doesn't, when I looked at the facility, it doesn't look like that would work.
So you're not going to be hosting the Olympics or anything like that, huh?
We hope so, but probably not.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Mack to approve, second by Mr. Manella. Please vote. Mr. Matthews. You vote? Did you vote? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 20 was tabled. Item 21, zoning case 12-08-084, existing zonings A4, single-family residential, proposed zoning A4, single-family residential, and MHO, manufactured housing overlay. It's 6,000 square feet. The petitioner is Aurora Costino, and the owner is Aurora and Jeffrey Costino. Parcel located on the northeast corner of Rex Avenue and Davis Street, being lot 188, Three Rivers Heights, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
Staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Costantino. I'm here to ask for approval.
All right. Thank you. Turn it over to the commission. Mr. Matthews.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Matthews to approve, seconded by Mr. Davis. Please vote.
And I did vote on this one. I voted on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Item 22 was postponed until October. Any old business? I have one item of new business I need to bring up and discuss with the commission. The September meeting is the Tuesday after the observed Labor Day. And I just want a commitment from all the commissioners. Either they're going to be here or they're not going to be here. If you plan on going out of town, okay, that's fine. But I don't want to get into a situation like we were in July, where it took 6 votes to do anything. In other words, we had some split votes here tonight, which is fine. That's the whole purpose of this commission. But if we're going to have a number of people out of town for Labor Day and not coming back on that Tuesday, then I think we need to recommend that we either postpone that planning meeting or try and combine it with the planning and zoning on the, I think it's the 11th of September. I'm gonna go around the table and let you speak so I have an idea which way we want to go, and I'll start with Ms. Casabon. Pardon? Okay. Doug? All right. Bernie? Mr. Matthews? You get shot. All right, Mr. Davis? Okay, Mr. Manella? Okay, all right, well, I plan on being here. I plan on being here. All right, motion to adjourn. Thank you.